Loaded show today on Best Ball Breakfast. I'll be doing a solo draft. Then we will be having Pat Kerrane swing by. But then we have a special guest. No Mike Leone this week. He's out. And filling in for him is the man who originally used to draft with me on Best Ball Breakfast at the noontime slot. None other than RotoViz's own Shawn Siegele. Very excited to get him back in the saddle. And then our rotating guest today, batting cleanup, is Lord Reeves, aka Rich Rebar from Sharp Football. So loaded show today, 4 Best Ball Mania 6 drafts. Let's do it. It really isn't that hard, guys. You just go top 2, win it, win it. Okay, I think we can be done here at running back. You only have 3 running backs. This roster is littered with game theory, arbitrage, exploits, and theoretic reasoning. Bro, light mode, my eyes, dude. I don't know. I prefer that move more in a time box contest. Bro, have you ever scrolled so far down that like there's no more names, bro? Don't do drugs, kids. Draft and drive instead. You can't have it both ways, dude. Quid pro quo. All right, how are we doing here on this beautiful Monday morning? Chris is all about CLV. Here we go. What do we got going on here? Catching up on the chat. We got some GMs going. We've got Fomstas. We've got Firmstas. Let's see here. What's up? OMG's already trying to fill a BBM. Yeah, don't worry. We'll be hopping in those today. What is up? My guy Willis. Tim is hopeful Siegele makes you draft a team with like 10 rookies. You don't have to hope for that. That is exactly what is going to happen, and it is going to be glorious. Don't worry though. I actually I drafted a couple teams over the weekend using Sean's rank, so I'm actually ready for what is to come. The what says this game is beatable. I sure hope you're right. Look at this. The chat is fired up today. What is up, Car Park? Car Park giving out 5 memberships. Thank you, sir, very much. Appreciate that. 7 a.m. in Vegas. Yeah, shout out to all of our West Coasters here who are up and at 'em early here for Best Ball Breakfast. I appreciate your guys' service here, getting up early. T-Bear is doing preliminary hearings in Best Ball. Sounds like a great way to spend your time. This is fake news. I am not at 35%. Oh, you're at 35% Rodgers before he signed. Is that good? I don't know if that's like honestly something that I would be bragging about. Like Rodgers isn't going to get that expensive. So I don't know if that was like a huge CLV opportunity, but I guess I'm happy for you, man. I guess I'm happy for you. What is up, Jonathan? This is a great time to draft. It's always a great time to draft, but yes, I agree. Let's see. Speaking of the memberships that Car Park gifted here, as always, our show on Wednesday, if you are a YouTube member, you are now eligible to draft a Best Ball Mania team with me. I do a show on Wednesdays called Best Ball Bash. We spin the wheel. If you are a YouTube member, you'll have access to the chat. You'll put a hashtag in there. I think we had about 30 entries last week. And Pat Moore Poker 1 came on and drafted a team with me. Had a very fun time doing that. So every week, a new YouTube member hopping on to draft a Best Ball Mania team. You just got to be in the chat at 1 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday and be ready to roll if you win the spot. And then we have the randomizer draft on Wednesday as well. And I should mention, our guest this week for the randomizer is none other than Ron Stewart. Very excited to have Ron Stewart join us this week. I've done lots of shows with Ron. I've drafted best ball teams with Ron. I've done shipcasts with Ron, but I've never done a randomizer. So I'll get that promotional tweet up later today. And if you guys are in the Discord, you guys can start sharing some suggestions for the Ron randomizer on Wednesday. But thank you again, Car Park. Very much appreciate the YouTube membership. That will also get you access, depending on which tier you are in, for the After Dark shows. The After Dark shows are every Thursday, or sorry, I'm trying to multitask right now and cannot get my thoughts together. The After Dark shows are on Friday and Saturday nights, and those are available to anyone of the Best Ball Value Hounds tier and higher. This past weekend, we had Steph Miller on. You guys might know her from around the Deposit Kingdom. And Steph was a great guest. And we actually drafted a very fun team as well. We don't always draft on After Dark, but was able to do that this Saturday and had a very fun show with Steph. All right, I think I'm all set now. I'm in a Best Ball Mania draft. I tipped you guys off in the Discord. Let me get my bearings here. I got ranks flying all over the place. We're going to draft off of Shawn's ranks when Shawn is here. We're going to draft off of Reeves' ranks when he's here. Pat has a new special version of the sidekick he was sending me. So I'm juggling a lot of logistical things this morning to get us off to the races. But I think we are good to go here now on Best Ball Breakfast. We need one more spot for a 30-second BBM, and then we can get rolling here. And I need to pour some coffee too. I have not had any coffee yet this morning. We got the 104 in here. Oh boy, this is a friends and family if I've ever seen one. Look at this. We got Chris G in the 1 hole. We got Imwald. We got Easy. We got B-Zigs. We got Mark. We got JGFC. Holy cow. This is one of the more friends and family-ish Best Ball breakfast rooms we will get. I think I'm going to clear my ranks. I think I'm going to raw dog it off at ADP for this first one. Let's see here. Get rid of those ranks. What BBM draft is this for me so we can get the ticker going? Best Ball Mania 34. 34th Best Ball Mania draft for me. Get that going. Okay. All right. I think I finally have, dare I say, my ducks in a row for this draft. Let me get the chat back up here. GMs. Time to draft a bunch of running backs. Yes, that's what we all do around here. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Barkley. Let's do Bijan. We'll grab a Bijan share here at 1-4, and we are off to the races. Let me actually share my window here so I can get a better look at this draft board. Did everybody have a good weekend? All right. Draft number 23 for you. Yeah, I was thinking about my pacing the other day because so far I am still on schedule. I have only done Best Ball Mania drafts on stream or for videos. They've either been on my channel or the Deposit Kingdom channel or the Ship Chasing channel, I believe, are where all of my Best Ball Mania drafts have taken place. I think that'll keep me relatively on pace to end up streaming all 150. We'll see how that shakes out once we get to August, maybe slightly behind pace at this point. Because if we really think about the summer as being in 4 chunks, May, June, July, August, being at 34 through early June is probably slightly behind pace, but we can always pick it up as needed. Joey's paranoid about his pacing, 29 of 150 deep. Look, if you don't have any streaming goals, you don't have to be paranoid about pacing. You can catch up whatever you want. With these 20-second drafts, you can rip off drafts so fast. Yes, time to talk about Morning Chubb. The big news yesterday, Nick Chubb signing with the Houston Texans. And yes, I'll be curious to see if the market is overreacting, dropping Joe Mixon significantly because of that. I think that would be a mistake, but I will happily take the discount if people want to play it like that. All right, we're back on the clock here. I think we'll take Ladd. I haven't been able to get much Ladd. I do think there's a pretty big tier break, from the Ladd to the T's, Garrett Wilson. So let's scoop up this last Ladd, and then we'll have more flexibility in early round 3. Start Bijan, Ladd McConkey. Ladd kind of sliding a little bit here, slides to 21. I'm trying to think what happened to push him up a little bit, or push him down, I should say. I guess Bucky flipping him there in ADP. Oh, Rashee Rice. There it is. I was like, there has to be one pick that was a little rogue in here. The Rashee Rice pick at 17 pushes Ladd down a little bit. Michael just got back from a 50+ mile backpacking trip in the Rockies last night. Coffee in this stream getting me going today. Congratulations, man. That sounds both like a brutal kind of trip, but also a very rewarding trip. So congratulations there. Chris G getting his first 101. 20 BBMs and 20 limbs in for Nick. I have been ripping the Superflex puppies, the 20-second fast drafts. Basically every day this weekend, I took April out on an early morning stroller walk and was able to squeeze in some puppies out there on the walks, which has been nice. I've been really enjoying the puppy drafts. We did a show on it on Off and On the Clock last week, digging into the strategy a little bit, and I've been enjoying getting a little bit of volume in over there. ML says in the main event slow drafts over on FFPC, somebody took him in the 13th round last night. Wow. Okay. That's generally how the boomers like to react to the news over there. All right, let me get back on the clock here. Jacobs, Tyreek, Chase Brown, JSN, Devontae here. Let's see. What do we want to do here? I think I can probably take a Jacob share. We'll continue to just kind of buy the slight dip on these guys. Two running backs early and 2 running backs with the same bye week. This team's dead. This team's absolutely dead. All right, now that we've gotten our testosterone in with a Bijan Josh Jacobs start, let's pour some coffee. Yeah, I don't. This is fine. Says Superflex is God's game. I don't like. So many people resist doing Superflex for some reason, and I guess I don't get it. I think I understand that, you know, the first maybe couple of drafts you got to kind of, you know, reorient yourself, get the lay of the land, kind of understand the ADP pockets. But once you do 1 or 2, then you're just back in cruise control like you are in traditional contests, and the Superflex dynamics make the draft boards much more unique each time around. Like every draft I do feels relatively different, and the strategies too for, like, you know, whether you're picking at the top of the board, having access to the truly elite QBs versus at the back of the board, and you're kind of wrestling with, do I get an elite, you know, running back or wide receiver, or do I grab a second tier of quarterback? I've loved those dynamics in Superflex. So yeah, you can get hooked on them quickly. I don't know if I understand this question. If you had money to only subscribe to one stats or grading service, you're not talking about like projections, rankings, stats, or grading service? I'm going to need you to expand on this here. Yosh is in the first eliminator streets. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Is opening with 3 straight QBs good or bad in Superflex? I don't love doing it from the front side of the board. My general MO in the Superflex drafts has been at least 2 through 4 rounds. And then if I'm a little weaker at quarterback, like say I am taking one from the back end of round 1, then maybe I'm trying to prioritize 3 through 5 or 6. But I've been kind of pushing my QB3 a lot. I've done a lot of Daniel Jones, a lot of Jackson Dart. I'll do some of the rookie quarterbacks, you know, the Shugs of the world. So yeah, I kind of like pushing QB3 a little bit, but I've also done teams where I've taken, you know, 3 through 4 rounds, and I like those teams as well. I just like seeing how much kind of high-end running back, wide receiver firepower I can milk out of it. All right, we are back on the clock here. James Cook is the slight running back faller. Some interesting news with him potentially holding out. I guess I saw a rumor that he put his Buffalo house up for sale. Not happy with the new contract there. We'll go ahead and grab Devontae Smith though, and get a wide receiver. We'll let Easy get his Jayden Daniels, Terry McLaurin stack. Joey is throwing in the towel on Superflex because of RNG draft slots. See, I don't mind. The way I've played getting the late slots is I will see, because you basically have 3 turns, right, of viable QB. So like this morning I had one where I had the 12. So I have the 1-2 turn, the 3-4 turn, the 5-6 turn, and I'll just do a quarterback, one quarterback, and then one other skill position at each of those. So I did like a Baker Mayfield and a Justin Jefferson. Then I did a Jordan Love and like a Bucky Irving. And then I think I got, I don't know if it was like a Sam Darnold or something in there, but I think you can make it work from that back slot. So I can do the Jalen Hurts thing if I wanted. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it's, you know what? No, screw it. I've been building out way more of these later quarterback and tight end rooms. I kind of want to try it again. Every time on stream, I get distracted by an elite onesie, but let's try to stick to our guns this time. We're going to take Jalen Waddle instead. So we got Bijan and Josh Jacobs. We got Ladd. We got Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle as our wide receivers. And let's build out a non-elite quarterback team. What do you think of elite tight end in Superflex? I have had a really hard time clicking on Trey McBride or Brock Bowers. I feel like the opportunity cost is really high. But I have been able to get some George Kittle. That's kind of been my way to have my cake and eat it too. But in general, I think it's really tough. And the tight ends, you know, that same pocket, the Dallas Goedert, the Jake Ferguson, that pocket we're all familiar with in the traditional contest, you know, it's alive and well in the Superflex streets as well. So I've been doing cheaper tight end mainly in the Superflex contest. Yeah, Ray Davis. You know, I think Ray Davis was a solid pick. You know where he's going right now. I mean, what is it? What is Ray Davis's ADP? Pick 136. This is obviously coming up a little bit, but now that you get to add in that, you know, light kind of you know, holdout / you know, trade type of outs, I think that makes him more intriguing. I will say though, in general, how many times have we done this song and dance? Star player wants new contract. You know, they hold out, they threaten. These guys don't have much leverage. I mean, the way James Cook wants to be paid, he wants to be paid as the a top 2 or 3 running back in the league. He wants CMC money. He wants Derrick Henry money. I don't know if that's realistic. I don't know if that makes sense for the Bills either. So these guys don't have much leverage. So they pull the only levers they can. They skip OTAs. Maybe they hold out a little bit. Maybe they threaten to put their house on the market. Ultimately, I think they get a deal done and he comes back and both parties move on. But just having that sliver of a chance, let's say it's a 5% chance, a 10% chance, maybe you think it's higher than 10%. I think that does make the Ray Davis pick a little more intriguing. And James Cook does fall to easy here at pick 51. I would certainly be buying the dip in the 5th round on James Cook. So yeah. All right, we are on the clock again here at 6-9. Nice. Let's grab a guy we haven't been clicking a lot. Let's grab Alvin Kamara. It's time for me to take my medicine. We're going to take Kamara at pick 69. We start Bijan, Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara, Ladd, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle. You know, if I go Jalen Hurts there, I almost for sure feel like I need to go wide receiver here because I would only have 2 wide receivers through 6 rounds. Then you can't take advantage of, say, a Kamara fall. But this is kind of one of the other benefits of when you do push the onesies and you don't, you know, take an elite quarterback or elite tight end, you have then more flexibility to grab a faller at either running back or wide receiver because you're not behind at any position. So we'll grab Kamara here. I think one of my first shares of him, which is probably a mistake, but I'm not going to let him slide by here at pick 69. Everybody's fired up about Superflex stuff. Maybe we'll run one back on off and on the clock tomorrow. I got to talk with John and Nez and see what they want to do. We generally bounce around, but if there's this much interest in Superflex, I'd be happy to do another Superflex draft. Quentin says, what's the best BBM team you've had throughout the years? In BBM 2, Eric and I had a team that finished top 10, and the draft was actually streamed. It's on this channel. I can maybe after the show, I'll link to it in the show notes if you want to see it. All right, we're back on the clock here. This feels like a good spot for a wide receiver, Diggs or Shakir. I'm trying to see if we have any correlation stuff. We could do Shakir opposite Devontae Smith in week 17. I think as a fourth wide receiver here. I don't mind Diggs, but let's just use the correlation tiebreaker there on Shakir, and a little behind at wide receiver, only 3 so far. So we'll grab Shakir here as our fourth, and you start to see the wide receiver cliff approaching a little bit as far as a tier break now that Ayuk comes off the board. There's still some guys to like in here, but I do always feel like I'd like to have, my 4 wide receivers here before it gets really gross in the late 80s, early 90s. Is it a mistake not drafting Tyler Shuck starting running back? I guess I kind of had this same take when people were talking about Olave and stuff. Olave with Carr, Shuck with Olave, etc. I don't really see that much of a difference. I do think there's more downside risk, but I think there's also more upside risk, right? Like, we knew exactly who Derek Carr was. I don't think that like the skill position players in this offense are going to crater because Derek Carr was there. I think you have to be a pretty big Derek Carr bull to be really worried about guys like Kamara and Olave. I think the targets, the workload will be there. I don't know why Tyler Shuck wouldn't check down to Kamara a decent amount. And the real selling point is the setup is very similar for him as it was last year, as far as very little competition. Kendre Miller, Devin Neal, I think both of those guys are intriguing to some extent. I know was a long conversation about the backup running backs in the Saints backfield in the ship chasing Discord over the weekend. And I think the kind of level-headed take right now is that the Saints running back 2 will be interesting for us to draft at some point, but we just don't know who that is right now. And so it's hard to draft any of the Saints other than Kamara. So I think drafting Kamara when you need a running back or when you get a discount on him, like I did here, makes a lot of sense. All right, this draft is whipping. We're about to pick at 8-9. I was kind of hoping I could grab Egbuka there. So that's a little bit of a bummer that we couldn't get him. I'm trying to see what else we want to do. We could do Cup. We could do Burden. I really don't like Cup here. I guess we can go Burden. I don't love it. Especially because you're able to get some cheap prices on Burden these days, just with the soft tissue issue. The Egbuka snipe there really hurts. Pittman comes off the board, obviously Downs. None of these running backs really speaking to me. I guess I could have done Kelsey. Nothing with the quarterbacks I want to do here. As far as my stack options, we got Herbert, we got Tua. Caleb's still here. So now we do add Caleb. And then there's stuff we can do with the running backs. Love, Penix are both in play with the Bijan Jacob start. So I think I have a ton of options here at quarterback. So we'll continue to kick that can down the road. Do I have any Cup shares in BBM? Yeah, I think I have 1 or 2. We could go look after this pick. Not a ton. I think I've done it maybe on like a JSN team, a team where I really got boxed out at wide receiver. Yeah, Cup's a tough click for me. The combination of his age, his decline, that offense, it's like one of those things where if he couldn't get it done alongside, Puka and Matthew Stafford last year, and now the situation is worse, how is that going to work out? Should we take one more crack at a running back here? And that we'll get now the full-on punt quarterback, punt tight end build here. And this is kind of the the structures I've been experimenting with here. So we're through 9 rounds and we have no quarterback and no tight end. We just had Jordan Mason as our 4th running back here. Bijan, Josh Jacobs, Kamara, and Jordan Mason at running back. 5 wide receivers, Ladd, Devontae, Jalen Waddle, Khalil Shakur, and Luther Burden. And now we will we'll see how things shake out. But with all the different quarterback outs, pairings with the running backs and the pass catchers, I think it's a fun way to build, especially with how much the talent really falls off at running back and wide receiver, you know, after pick 100 or so. Ryan wants me to be done at running back. I certainly think you could. I mean, this is going to be a 3 quarterback, 3 tight end build. So that's 6 roster spots there, right? So that takes us to 15 total spots, leaving us with 3 more. We're probably for sure getting to 7 wide receivers. So then it's probably a 5th running back or an 8th wide receiver, depending on how it shakes out. The issue, I think, right now with just saying, like, I'm for sure done at running back, 1, we want to be flexible, but 2, I think generally right now, I find the late round running backs to be more intriguing than the late round wide receivers. You know, you do have some of the rookie wide receivers that I guess have a little juice in them, but as far as these RB2 types, you know, Dylan Sampson, Jarquez Hunter, DJ Giddens, I tend to like the running backs late there more than the wide receivers. It just feels like you have to get less things right for them to be relevant. Whereas the wide receivers, we really need to get some indication that they're going to be used as rookies. GM Jordan. Matthew says, what is the highest percentage share you want to get on a player? How much is too much? To be honest, I don't really, and I haven't even, you noticed I have the Draft Caddy overlay up here. At some point, probably in like another 10 or so drafts, BBM drafts, I'll add my percentages up there. I haven't been thinking about my percentages, and I don't really think about my draft percentages in that way where I'm like, I want X percentage of this player. I think naturally the way I draft, grabbing ADP fallers, drafting with a bunch of other people, I get naturally smoothed out exposures. So I don't really have to worry about stuff like that. It's going to be very hard for me to have more than 30% of a player. That's just kind of the way I tend to draft. So yeah, any players I have more than 20% of, I really like that player. Yeah, this is a good bull case for Kupp, but still wide receiver 24 in points per game last year. This is from Easy. Hard to see him playing a full year, but contingent value goes both ways, and think he'd be projected as a wide receiver 1 if JSN missed any time. Yeah, he would be a target monster for sure without JSN. All right, we are back on the clock here. What do we want to do? Caleb Williams is gone. I don't think I want to do anything with tight end here. We could grab another wide receiver and give us another. Let's do. Kirk gives us another out. I'm going to do Kirk at the last second here if I got it in. Kirk is opposite Ladd, and it gives me another quarterback out as well with CJ Stroud. And now we're up to 6 wide receivers here. And so we've done the full punt, quarterback, punt, tight end challenge. No quarterbacks or tight ends through 10 rounds. But this is going to be where we have to swing back and start drafting quarterbacks. Because that's the one thing. And there goes Herbert. Who's taking Herbert for me? This is Imwald. Come on. Now I'm tilting. Okay. Omarion Hampton and Trey Harris. But this is the beauty of having a bunch of different quarterback outs. All right. Let's see. Who do we want to get? This is probably... We have a ton of quarterbacks in this range. that makes sense for us. Dak does not make sense. Drake May would have made sense, obviously, if we took Diggs instead of Shakir, but we didn't. I don't have any Jet stuff. So let's just go down to Jordan Love. We can do Jordan Love paired with Josh Jacobs. I don't mind having the quarterback and running back stacks. There's stuff we can do later as far as Kraft, Dobbs, all of the other cheap late Green Bay rookies. So we'll grab our first quarterback here and stop messing around at quarterback. So Joey says Drake May backstack. The only thing about that is when you've already used 6 spots up at wide receiver and you're close to being done at running back, you have to think through, like, what spots do I actually have left to backstack? Obviously, Hunter Henry with a tight end spot would have made sense, but I don't have that many other stacking spots left to play with. So I prefer to just grab a player who already correlates on my team, as opposed to needing to build out another team stack. And I didn't have anything with Jets. I didn't have anything with Patriots. So that's it's putting a lot of pressure on my roster to make a Patriots thesis work without too many running back and wide receiver spots left. Yeah, Tua will definitely make sense for this team. This is, this is the spot you find yourself in a lot with the quarterback situations. And you could have made the case that I should have just taken Herbert at 117 if I wanted that stack, because these quarterbacks are going to fly off the shelves in this range. And it always feels like your queue is full of them. And then next thing you know, you blink and they're all gone. So it continues to be a note for myself and for anyone who feels like they have a million quarterback options in your back pocket. But I think this will work, assuming Greaves doesn't take a random unstacked QB3 here. I think Stroud makes a ton of sense for us. So we get Stroud here, or do we take Kraft? That's the other option. Tua's the only one. See, I don't think I want to mess around anymore. I think I don't need Kraft enough to pass on Stroud here. Stroud also allows me to take Dalton Schultz, who I'm becoming the lady who doth protest too much about saying they don't like Dalton Schultz, because on every piece of content I make, I end up explaining that people say I love Dalton Schultz, and then I end up taking Dalton Schultz, and I'm having a hard time disproving that thesis. But with Jordan Love and CJ Stroud here, now I feel a little bit better about quarterback. And Tua had gone too, right? Yeah. Tua went at 139. So, I mean, the quarterback prices in this room is wild. Tua goes at 139 ahead of 154. Penix went at, what pick? His ADP is 147, and Penix went at 135. Nothing is safe. Nothing is safe in this room. So now I actually don't have anything very concrete as far as like a really good quarterback 3 option. We might have to build out another back stack, but that's fine at this point. This draft is playing out like one of the Superflex drafts with the quarterbacks flying off the shelves. Let's see here. What do we want to do? We don't have... we could do something with Bryce Young. I think we need to get a tight end. We need a tight end with some upside here. We still have 0 tight ends. We're going to need to build that out. Let's grab Likely here. It's at ADP. It's opposite our Green Bay bring back for week 17. So we get a nice little Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs opposite Isaiah Likely. I think that pick makes sense. No, you don't. No one ever has to apologize to me. I'm just marveling at the quarterback dynamics in this room. It's like I've been in rooms lately where it was on Saturday night. Look at this price on Tua from the draft I did with Steph on Saturday night. We did a Best Ball Mania team. Look at where Tua went. Tua went at pick 201. Can you see it here on the screen? 201 is how far Tua fell. So I'm just laughing at Tua going 20 picks ahead of ADP when I've seen him fall literally to the 17th round. Yeah, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud. Let me recap here. I've gotten lazy for my audio listeners, and I apologize. I was in the midst of a quarterback avalanche and forgot to service you. Jordan Love, CJ Stroud at quarterback. We still got our 4 running backs up top: Bijan, Josh Jacobs, Kamara, Jordan Mason. We got our 6 wide receivers: Ladd, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Shakir, Burden, Kirk, likely at tight end. And we do have some nice Week 17 stacks. We got the Stroud to Kirk with the Ladd McConkey bring back, the Love, Jacobs, and likely got a Week 16 bring back on Love with Luther Burden. And I think this will be a nice pocket here for tight end as well. Kyle Pitts falling, Brenton Strange, Zach Ertz, Pat Freiermuth, Hunter Henry. And I'll just kind of have to figure out what I want to do with my third quarterback situation. We could take like a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson. I do enjoy doing the back stack for the Giants. This probably feels like a tight end pick. I might go full Leone here and take Kyle Pitts at pick 165. I'm trying to think if I have any other correlation angles. The other thing I do like is Indy back stacks as well, especially if I go with a Daniel Jones. Let's do Brenton Strange instead. I'll save my Kyle Pitts clicks for with Leone. We'll do Isaiah Likely and Brenton Strange here. And then maybe we could back into something with Indianapolis correlating around Brenton Strange. Get that second tight end here in a pretty flat tier for the other positions. I did see this photo. You Ready says, did you see the photo of Waddle gained 150 pounds? Tua lost a weapon. Ole Bake says he drops. Angles matter, guys. There's a reason that girls always post like this in photos. Jalen Waddle just had a poor angle. Let's cut him some slack. Pitt's ADP belongs in the 180s. Based on how this room is going, that's where he is going to be found. No one wants to touch Kyle Pitts. I will take him at. Will I take him at 173 here? Look at everyone standing for something. Morals. They refuse to draft Kyle Pitts. That was the center in the Waddle jersey. Okay, I got duped. That is hilarious. It's not even an AI deep fake. It was actually an offensive lineman put his jersey on. That's really funny. All right, Imwald does the dirty work and takes him for us. All right, let me get back on the clock here. What do we want to do? I kind of like the idea of building out this Indy thing. Geno is also kind of intriguing at this price, but not a lot to stack him with. Let's do Alec Pierce as our 7th wide receiver here. Alec Pierce is not a guy I've taken a lot. Normally when I'm drafting off of ranks, he's buried in ranks. So let's grab an Alec Pierce share here and see if we can set up something with Indy. So we're at a 2-4-7-2. We're still chilling at running back with just Bijan, Jacobs, Kamara, and Mason. Still probably have one more running back dart in us. Going to get to 3 quarterbacks and 3 tight ends. This Geno fall is kind of crazy, though. Chris G is never going to forget that Kyle Pitts cost him a dog bowl seat. I do remember that. I remember looking that up on stream. NFL Centel. It's basically Dove Cliveman at this point. Shouldn't Freiermuth be rising now that Rodgers signed? I think so. I think you could have argued that he was a little undervalued even before and now feels pretty entrenched. Yeah, I think Freiermuth is a pretty good click. I like that take. Yeah, I think the running back room is very solid as well. It was more like I was saying, I have 3 more picks, right? And I'm gonna be doing a third quarterback, a third tight end, and then I have 1 extra pick. So it's a 5th wide receiver, an 8th wide receiver, or sorry, a 5th running back or an 8th wide receiver. We can see. I think I'm probably leaning towards a 5th running back, but I do agree. I don't have to. I think I could easily rock with just these 4 here. Dalton Schultz goes. Mark takes Dalton Schultz for me. I'm off the hook. I'm off the hook of being a Dalton Schultz slappy. All right, yeah, we're gonna do Daniel Jones here. So we'll do the Daniel Jones with Alec Pierce, and now we have Love Jacobs with a likely bring back, Stroud, Kirk, Ladd bring back, Danny Dimes, Alec Pierce, Brenton Strange bring back. And we'll now we're done with quarterback. We'll be looking at running backs, tight ends, and maybe an 8th wide receiver. Let's see. Should this be an 8 wide receiver room? Pick 21, 45, 52, 76, 93, 5 through 100, and then Kirk at 117, Alec Pierce at 172. I think it's close. I think we can just go best running back or best wide receiver available for that last pick. I was hoping DJ Giddens would fall to me. I think that would have made sense on an indie team. We could double stack Daniel Jones with AD Mitchell, which is, I think, what I'm leaning toward right now. I think that's how I want to play that. Let's do the Danny Dimes double with the 2 cheap deep threats. And then we'll stay with the 4 running backs. I'm not in the Marshawn Lloyd business. I have Josh Jacobs. Dylan Sampson's kind of intriguing. I guess Woody Marks could have been the other option instead of AD Mitchell. If I wanted that 5th running back, but I think Marks is probably going to get really cheap, essentially free with the signing of Chubb. So we probably don't need to pack too many of those bags right now. We'll just get a 3rd tight end to close things out. And it's not that pretty. It's definitely not that pretty back here at tight end right now. Brett Jones says DJ Giddens is a great pick right now. Yeah, I think I agree. I think if I would make the bear case against DJ Giddens, it's that we don't know for sure that he's the RB2 quite yet. And there is, I think, risk for a little bit of tomfoolery there if he doesn't lock up that number 2 job. If we're being honest with ourselves, he still has 0 risk in him. But knowing how talented he is, knowing that his prospect profile indicates that he could be a bell cow back in the event of a Jonathan Taylor injury, I think he's very much worth the plunge right now. Welcome, Matthew. We got a few new YouTube members here, Dale and Matthew. Make sure you guys hop in the Discord as well. There's instructions in the FAQ to sync your username with your YouTube username with your Discord username. It'll unlock the private channels depending on what level YouTube member you are. All right, let's see. Which tight end are we going to take here with our last pick? The what's throwing out Conklin. I did see some Conklin coach speak the other day. In this range of the draft, I'll put in the queue the guys I've been clicking that I think are draftable. I've done Jatavian Sanders. I've done Theo Johnson. I have done Conklin, and then Higbee is the other guy. This is kind of the short list back here of the tight ends I think are draftable. It is a bummer I don't have Herbert because then Conklin would make a ton of sense. I still don't mind the Conklin thought if we just want to build out that game stack a little bit more. I don't have anything with like Seattle or Tampa Bay for Jatavian. Theo, Minnesota, Las Vegas, not much there. Seattle, Atlanta. I mean, we do have Bijan. I've kind of been liking Higbee. Let's do Higbee opposite Bijan week 17. I feel like Higbee and Conklin are essentially the same guy anyways. But yeah, we'll play that last minute Oppo card, our first overall pick here. Good question. Where did Nick Chubb go? I missed it. Let me see. Or did he even get drafted? Nick Chubb got drafted by Greaves. Greaves was drafting right next to me. Took him in the 18th round at pick 212, which feels about right. I think that's fine, right? Nick Chubb getting drafted now. He has a team. He goes after Miles Sanders, after Keaton Mitchell, after Brashard Smith, after Eli Mitchell. That feels about right to me. Nick Chubb, I'm going to take the courageous stand and say that Nick Chubb deserves to be an 18th round pick. No more and no less, though. Mark handing out some memberships. Appreciate you, Mark. Did you do a rebrand, Mark? I feel like you used to be, was it M Wolf was your YouTube username, and now you have a different avatar as well? This is a whole new Mark here, and a generous one nonetheless. Brett says he's been clicking Miles Sanders. I have been too. He has been kind of my break glass in case of emergency. I'm in round 18. I need a running back. I'm a little queasy about some of these rookie shots right now. Let me click my Miles Sanders. I will say though, looking at this round 18 of running backs here, I do think Keaton Mitchell is now pretty interesting. The coach speak and where we're at with him seems pretty bullish as far as him recovering and being able to make an impact this year. So I think he's in play late. But yeah, Miles Sanders is pretty fun. And then it's like, I like guys like Dylan Sampson, Brashard Smith, obviously Jarquez Hunter. We talked about DJ Giddens, but I do want to get some news on those guys before you're really slamming it in. Yes, Taj Brooks would be another one. Wow. See, this is why I invited Steph on to After Dark, because I knew she'd be compromised. I knew she would soften up a little bit if I could just have a face-to-face with her. But no, she's giving me an A-. Let me recap this one in full for the audio listeners. I appreciate all of you guys who watch on YouTube, especially those of you guys watching live here on a Monday, but we will always service our audio listeners. I post the audio to all of these shows on my channel on the In a Vacuum podcast feed. I have a link down to it below, but you can search for it, podcast, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Pocket Cast, wherever you consume your podcasts. And this is the team, a 3-4-8-3. I had that decision point in the early fifth. Do I want to stack up Jalen Hurts with Devontae Smith or not? And I decided, no, let me push it. Let me do one of these extreme punt quarterback tight end builds. And I will say, this didn't go as clean as I wanted it to. I thought I had a lot of stacking outs. The Herbert stuff, the Tua stuff kind of evaporated and made the cleanliness of the stacking evaporate. But I still like how this turned out. Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Daniel Jones. We rocked the 4 running back build. Multiple of you in the chat said this could be just a 4 running back team. That's what we ended up doing. Bijan, Jacobs, Kamara, and Jordan Mason. We ended up with 8 wide receivers: Ladd, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Khalil Shakur, Luther Burden, Christian Kirk, Alec Pierce, A.D. Mitchell, and then 3 tight ends, likely Brenton Strange and Tyler Higbee. So yeah, I do like how the correlation shook out on this one. Love, Jacobs, Oppo likely, Stroud, Kirk, Oppo, Ladd, Danny Dimes, and then the 2 cheap vertical receivers there, Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell with the Strange bring back. We get Higbee opposite Bijan in week 17 there as well. So yeah, not too bad. Devontae Smith opposite Khalil Shakur in week 17. So yeah, I like how that turned out. There were a few specific kind of snipes for player targets, But these are the kind of teams I can draft in these streamed rooms where I'm going to get a Kamara share, where I don't often get them in other instances. So I don't mind how this one turned out. I would have just liked to have gotten Herbert or Tua to stack up with Ladd or Waddle, I think ideally, but otherwise we made do. Lutz says, I still don't understand why people will draft Justice Hill with no hesitation when Ty Johnson is just chilling undrafted. Well, I think the argument would be that Justice Hill faces less running back 2 competition than Ty Johnson does. Like if you think about like how those depth charts shake out, you have obviously Henry and then Justice Hill, like very clear role. And now Keaton Mitchell's kind of the wild card. And I think Keaton Mitchell is probably more a contingent play with a Derrick Henry injury as opposed to taking over the Justice Hill role. Whereas if you think about the Bills backfield, it is James Cook, then Ray Davis in the 2, and then Ty Johnson more in the 3. Like maybe we're picking nits here, but I do think there is a categorical difference between Justice Hill's role on the Ravens and Ty Johnson's on the Bills. Especially if you forecast more of a year 2 leap for Ray Davis, which I think you should. And the other issue for Ty Johnson is I think Ray Davis is a pretty good pass catcher himself. So I think his path to like a steady role is just a little bit murkier than Justice Hill's, where we've seen that kind of play out year over year. Blizzy, what is your favorite place for lobster rolls out there? Someone's saying Hook and Co. Man, that is a good question. There's a few good places on the Cape. But yeah, I would have to look up the names for you. I don't actually have a name right off the top of the dome. Generally, I'm a little disappointed in the size of the lobster rolls. Like you can get really good lobster rolls, but you're paying so much money for so little meat, and that always frustrates me. The Wauquasit Resort on Chatham on the Cape has really big lobster rolls. So I'm kind of like a quantity guy when it comes to lobster rolls. Frankie says, Pete, do you need a separate membership for Spotify? I went to listen to After Dark on my drive to work and it had a lock symbol on it. So I did something with the After Dark shows. There's basically 2 ways you can get the premium shows. You can be a YouTube member, the Best Ball Value Hounds, and you can watch it on YouTube. But I know some people just prefer the audio version. So I created a subscription on Spotify. So it's basically saying, hey, I don't need to be a YouTube member on the channel. I'd rather pay to get the audio version. So it's just an alternate if you don't care about the other perks that come with the YouTube membership. And if you exclusively use that membership to watch After Dark shows and you prefer being an audio listener, then the Spotify option is there for you. So yes, if you want to watch them and you're a YouTube member, then you got to do it on YouTube. I wish there was a way to make them all synced up across the different platforms, but just wanted to provide an alternative for the audio listeners out there. Matt is going to vouch for Yankee Lobster in Seaport. I don't know if I've had that one. A drive-through lobster roll place just opened in Tucson. I'm disgusted. I do not know if I would have the balls to try a drive-through lobster roll place in Tucson. Oh, man. Beachcomber lobster roll. Yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one. So here's our schedule for the rest of today. We're going to have Kerrane coming on here in a second for our usual draft. And then we're going to have Shawn Siegele filling in for Leone at noon. And then Lord Reeves coming on at 11. So let me get this team named here. My 34th draft. And I'm glad that I went with the late round quarterback and tight end experiment on that one. Oh, the other snipe that I remember hurting, I really wanted Ibuka especially because Baker ended up falling in that draft. Did the Igbokwe drafter end up getting Baker? I should go look because that was a pretty big slide, if I recall correctly. All right. GB Houston. Let's see, where did Baker end up going in this draft? Baker went at 103 to the Godwin drafter. Oh, to Mark. No wonder Mark was handing out YouTube memberships. He was feeling so generous after the room was generous with this Baker Mayfield price, and then comes back and gets Jalen McMillan there at pick 151. Very nice. Can't do landlocked steak seafood. I agree. Although I will say, when I was out in Colorado last summer, Jennings and Levitan gave me a sushi place recommendation that was very, very good. But growing up in Colorado, I did not have sushi until I went to school in San Diego. That was my first time having sushi because it was like, one, it wasn't prevalent in the way it is now, but two, the only seafood places around at the time were basically Red Lobster. Cod Season says, any chance of one BBM draft with Pat and Shawn together this year? Probably not. Part of the thing is Shawn wasn't able to do the show regularly this year, so he's just doing me a favor, pinch hitting for Leone. But I will say we will be doing an annual draft with Shawn over on Ship Chasing. We always draft a high stakes team over there. And I think we're actually going to be kicking those off a little earlier this year. FFPC launched their high stakes contests already. So with Davis and Sanderson, Jacob and myself, and Pat and myself, we'll be hopping in some of those. So if you guys are interested in high stakes season long and kind of seeing how that ADP shapes up, make sure you guys are subscribed over to Ship Chasing because we're going to get rolling with those pretty soon. I'm like reading past comments about lobster mixed in with fantasy conversations. How do we feel about McMillan? I was drafting a decent amount of McMillan in the big board, and it was a very bad run out for him, obviously with the Igbokwe draft. But I don't mind his current price. I take Jalen Knoll over him in that range when I'm kind of looking for a wide receiver. I think as long as you're going into the Jalen McMillan pick with kind of open eyes and basically treating him in the same way you would a contingent running back, that's kind of how I'm thinking about him. He's like the Tyler Algier of wide receivers for me. And even then, the bet isn't that clean. Bijan goes down, Algier's a smash. If Mike Evans goes down, yes, Jalen McMillan's playing time really shoots up, but he's still competing for targets, with Godwin and Igbokwe and Cade Otton. So, but I do think that's kind of the thesis for me. This is an offense that's going to score a ton of points. And if there's an injury, that fourth guy, in this case, Jalen McMillan, is going to be very relevant. So that's kind of how I'm viewing him. I think the path to like a true year two breakout is almost non-existent at this point. Like it went down to a sliver. If they don't draft Igbokwe, you're starting to look at the McMillan profile and getting excited about what he could do in a year 2 cents. And you look at how the prices are different for even a guy like Keon Coleman, right? Where Jalen McMillan had a better into last year than Keon Coleman, but we're still drafting Coleman much higher because they didn't draft a first round wide receiver like the Bucs did. So I was bummed about the run out for McMillan. I think he's draftable. I think he's fine, but I think you just got to be honest with yourself of what you're getting. Yeah. And a TD play. I think that is a good way to think about him. Is it bad to be fully fading Leggett? I don't think so. I guess I would question why you would want to fully fade him. One way I would say it would be bad to fully fade him is if you're still building out Panthers backstacks. And I do think Panthers are one of the best backstacks available. When you think about the fact that you can get Bryce Young, Leggett, Thielen, Coker, Ferguson, even Sanders, Jatavian Sanders, not Ferguson. They stand out to me as a team to bail you out if you're looking for correlation late. So if you're building out Bryce Young stuff, if you're building out Carolina stuff, and then also just specifically fading Leggett, that feels a little bit like bad process to me. But if you're lukewarm on the Panthers in general, and you don't really buy it, then I don't necessarily think it's insane. I do think, though, their price, like, unlike a guy like McMillan, right? Like, if we're juxtaposing those two wide receivers, year two wide receivers, I think the addition of Igbuka is far worse for McMillan than the addition of Tet is for Leggett. And the price, you know, Leggett was almost always at that price. Like, there was room for the Panthers to add a legit option and not necessarily crater, you know, the target shares or the projections for those other wide receivers. Because I think Leggett, if he hits, it's going to be playing outside. And if anything, less, you know, coverage, less attention on him, with Tet now kind of commanding that. So I still think Leggett is a fairly intriguing kind of year two bet to make, but more so on the overall offense, you know, being much better this year, as opposed to like thinking you're going to get this true year two breakout from Leggett. And I do agree that seems a little more thin. What is up, Pat?
What's up?
How you doing?
Good. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Just drafted a team. I did essentially my experiment of a full late round quarterback, late round tight end. Team didn't take my first quarterback until round 11.
Okay.
I had to pass on Jalen Hurts in the 5th to do it, but kind of liked how it turned out.
Passing on Hurts in the 5th is tough. What were your 3 quarterbacks?
I did Stroud, Jordan Love, and Daniel Jones.
Pretty good.
Yes. Hang on. Thank you, Jonathan, I've been continuing to forget the intro music for my hosts that I have them. So without further ado, let's welcome Pat Kerrane to the stage. Scuba Kerrane, Patty Millions, Peacock Pat Kerrane on the 1s and 2s.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
98 yards to the fucking house against Carolina in week 10.
All right. There we go. And I absolutely cannot forget to do the one for Shawn as well, because as you see, Shawn's going to make his
I saw
his return today.
Yeah, it's awesome.
How have things been going for you guys over at Leg Up? I know you guys have been in the sim weeds lately.
Yeah, we had a stream last week where we talked about upcoming updates to the Sidekick, which includes the addition of Sims, which is going to allow us to do a bunch of really cool things. One, it'll make the dynamic rankings more accurate, and it'll also allow us to support other formats like Eliminator, weekly winners, all that kind of stuff. And then it'll also allow us to dial in the recommendations more specifically to like the contest structure, advanced structure, final size, all of that. But yeah, we have basically the process goes from, you know, a ranking that's getting moved up or down versus creating realistic fantasy outcomes for every player in the player pool, with a sample of like tens of thousands of seasons. So that's quite a bit more powerful way to analyze things. So it unlocks some stuff, and we're excited to get it in people's hands relatively soon.
Yeah. So what are going to be the kind of the changes people are going to see? And I think Pat, you had sent me over an updated version, and I believe I have it here. I got this showing up, Pat, but I don't. Was there anything else I need over here to get?
No, you should be good once. Yeah, once the draft goes live. Although you should actually already see. If you go up to the top right, maybe hit reload and see if that.
Reload where?
It'd be up in the top right. I can't see you. You're covering it.
Oh, let me here. Let me push us over here.
Yeah. So the Sidekick. Yeah. Right. Click that.
Yeah.
The Sidekick icon. Okay. Yeah. I can't see it.
Oh, I did click it. Hit reload.
Okay. Yeah.
To log out and reinstall. No, reload rankings. Reset.
Yeah.
overlay,
Reload rankings.
Okay. Reload rankings, restart extension.
I think reload rankings should work. And then it'll just it might take like 10 seconds to get your rankings.
All right. While we get this figured out, we have the 1-4, which is the exact spot I had in the previous draft here. I got to get the leg up ranks in here as well. Have you guys did you guys make any rankings adjustments from the
for Mixon
signing? Yeah.
There's a debate in the rankings chat going right now. And the debate, no one's arguing for further changes. We're just arguing about basically how much we like or don't like Joe Mixon. We all agree about what the changes should be.
Okay, we'll figure out this thing with the sidekick here in a second. But Bijan, CD, Gibbs, Puka, what do you want to do at one?
I kind of lean CD here.
Let's do it. I did Bijan last draft, so let's mix it up.
Yeah, click that little wheel there. And then we might be good to go.
Unable to connect to the leg up sidekick. Check your internet connection and try again. It's refreshing me there. Yeah, I'm not sure.
At this point, I'd probably just install the normal one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me
just right click it, remove it, and then
I'll try refresh it once more, and then we'll get it back. Yeah. Okay. I'll remove that one. And is just refresh? Is it in? Do I get it in the Play Store or just from?
Go to Legendary Upside. Just go to the main page and then install Sidekick right at the top there.
Yeah. And
then go down and hit install Sidekick, and you should be good.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. In the first draft I did, Nick Chubb went in the 18th round. Did you guys add him into the
he's draftable, I think. I think this is probably close to best case scenario for Chubb. I mean, we were worried Chubb wouldn't sign, like it's with some of these guys, like you don't hear much about them and then they just don't play. Like he was pretty dusty last year. Did not look like the same guy coming off injury. I actually went back and watched the game where he had 2 touchdowns against the Steelers.
I just remember when we watched that game on the Shipcast.
Yeah, as I was watching, I was like, "This is the game we watched," and and it was like one of those things where, because like Sacrilegious was talking about how washed he was, and it's like, he doesn't look like as washed as I was worried he might, but around like carry 13, because it's the NFL Pro I was watching on, so it's just like the cut up, and it's the all 22. I got no music. I'm just sitting there in silence watching Nick Chubb. Bucky Irving's pretty fun here, or Taylor.
Yeah, take your pick?
I should probably do Taylor. I don't take Taylor as much, but I'm down for either.
I don't know. I don't know what happened to me, but I get really excited whenever I can click Jonathan Taylor these days.
Okay.
I don't know. I think the setup is it's pretty clean. I think as excited as we are for Bucky, there still is kind of room for, I think, like a little bit of workload tomfoolery there. Every time the coaching staff talks, they're still hyping up Rachaad White. They're still hyping up. They can never not mention Sean Tucker when they talk about the running back room. Whereas I just
Sean Tucker's good.
He is. But yeah, the JT, I think he's just a smash, and we're not really paying the premium that you'd expect for how he finished the season last year.
Yeah, I mean he's helped by Daniel Jones too, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
All right, we're about to pick here at 3-4. Marvin, McLaurin, Tyreek. We could obviously do Terry opposite CD. JSN, any of these wide receivers speak to you here?
Terry's cool. There is some contract stuff there, I guess, which is a minor concern. I'm down. Honestly, any of these receivers, any of these top 3, I probably wouldn't take Tyreek. Terry, Harrison, and JSN would be where my head's at. Let's
do Terry, and then we can kind of have a decision if Jayden comes back to us in the late 4th.
Yeah.
What's the Terry contract? I missed this.
I think he wants more money, I think.
Okay. Well, don't we all? That was like actually I was talking about that with the chat during the first draft. Did you make any moves on James Cook with him kind of threatening being done with the Bills?
So we've been pretty bearish on James Cook the whole way. And I had like basically we were like, I was trying to keep us closer to market on James Cook than we would be, kind of based purely on what we have in for what beats the Sims. And I just stopped doing that. I was like, here's the truth of what I think now, because I mean, Cook led the league in rushing touchdowns last year, and still wasn't like a huge smash, and is a pretty bit matter. We had some good points on him being like a clear-cut negative regression candidate as far as the touchdowns go. Like, we didn't expect him to score a bunch of touchdowns last year because he wasn't going to be set up to, and he kind of wasn't set up to, and then he scored a bunch of touchdowns. So you have like, he's sort of a dangerous type of guy where you're dealing with negative regression headwinds, and then also he didn't even crush like with that really kind of outlier production. So the outlier touchdown production. So I was already pretty nervous.
Yeah.
At the same time, like, he is on the Bills and he could spike in any week. So I was trying to, before the contract stuff, I was like, I don't want to have 0, but now I think he has to fall a little bit, right?
I would think so. Cause he had been kind of hovering in that ambiguous, like mid to late round 4. And I think you can make the case he should now be like with the RJ Harvey Chuba kind of ish. And then you can kind of pick and choose within that range. That's
kind of where I'm at too. And generally, like, in this range, guys don't like normally fall. There's not a ton of shuffling, like you weren't really getting James Cook in the 5th. So it's not that I think James Cook is like 3 rounds overpriced. It's just that I just never saw him where I would want to take him, which is kind of that range.
Yep. All right, we're about to pick here after Charlie goes. CD, Jonathan Taylor, Terry McLaurin is our start. Late 4th round here. Obviously, Jayden, if he falls, Omarion Hampton also here by ADP. Obviously, Cook going to be the faller. So Jayden Daniels is here.
Yes, Jayden Daniels is awesome here.
Yeah, and so the chat talking about it, and I think we've had this conversation a little bit too, of like, I think it's okay. Like, Terry McLaurin can be, slightly overpriced for what he offers. But again, no one is like drafting Terry McLaurin thinking he's going to like all of a sudden earn a 28% target share, right? It's
right.
Like, we kind of know who he is. We're on a touchdown heavy site. And we know that Terry and Jayden's like uber spikes were really highly correlated in games last year. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not going to be overweight Terry, but I also want a handful of Jayden Terry stacks in my portfolio.
100%. And man, with the CD bring back, this is just such a fun start.
Yeah, and it is like, I guess it lines up decently with ADP. I guess Terry sometimes goes a little earlier. You don't necessarily always see Chase Brown and Jacobs go ahead of him. And sometimes people will take the naked Jayden in the middle of the 4. So it is fun to get them to all line up like that.
Yeah, very, very fun.
Yeah, Eli pointing out Commanders have an awesome fantasy playoff schedule. So yeah, it's like, that's why you get so excited about guys like Jayden Daniels and Brock Bowers, because you're like, they were so good as rookies.
Mm-hmm.
What could it even look like if they take even a little step forward on top of that?
Totally.
All right, we'll see what our wing does here. Wow, massive Omarion Hampton slide to 5-4.
This is awesome.
Slam it. Yeah.
Slam it.
Yeah, you do not see that too often.
This is a spot where kind of like where what we're seeing from the Sims driven recommendations is that, like, grabbing this running back who we think is going to score a lot of points in the 5th round is a really good move. That yes. Like kind of some of the wide receiver avalanche stuff that we're worried about. It's like basically the question that it's posing is like, what if you're already buried? What if the avalanche had already happened? Like, you can try to stay out in front of the avalanche if there's still guys to do it with. But if you're sacrificing points at running back in the name of staying ahead of the avalanche, then don't do that. So getting Hampton here is just like, I don't think we're out of structure. I think maybe in the past we would have thought we were, but I kind of don't think we are.
I agree. And, you know, one of the things I was talking through in the first draft, so I obviously passed on Hurts in the 5th to stack with Devontae, but what it allowed me to do is I had in this exact same spot, Kamara came back to me at pick 69 in the 6th. And because I hadn't spent on one of the ones, it's like, boom, let me get my 3rd running back here.
Yep.
I had a Bijan, whoever, and then in Kamara. Whereas like in this start, it might get a little trickier if we really like a running back faller. It's like we've kind of already made that decision. And that's really the only downside, I think, of the elite quarterback, elite tight end, is you don't have like utmost flexibility with these picks. Like one of these picks at minimum needs to be a wide receiver and probably 2, but you just can't complain about a start like this.
No. And I think I am trying to break ties to like CD Lamb in that spot, because I do think it gives you flexibility. Like this would be a little different if we didn't have CD Lamb as our number 1 pick. Not like crazy different, but it definitely gives you more flexibility to get loose with the structure in those middle rounds.
Yes, I agree. And I'm trying to see what other. So James Cook went at 47 in this one, and Joe Mixon slid to 62 here.
Wow,
that's a pretty crazy overcorrection.
Yeah, I think he's a good value there.
Yes,
we lowered him, but I mean, he's still in like the 50s.
Yeah, you guys, I just looked. You, at least if these were the updated, you have him at 53 ADP, 52. Yeah. It seems like he will slide a little bit on this news because people have historically loved Nick Chubb. Like, I don't think people are going to want to assign maybe more weight to that signing than what really matters.
I agree.
All right, so we're about to pick here. By ADP, it's definitely running backs. The sidekick likes the Green Bay wide receivers for us. What do you think?
I think we go Connor, and then we push. We'll get or Judkins, frankly, and then we get one of the receivers on the way back.
I have not been getting to Connor a ton, so I don't mind that. Let's see this. All right, we are 2 wide receivers through 6 rounds. We're getting loaded up here at the other positions, and we'll see how if we can survive here at the 7th and 8th.
Now, this is a best ball breakfast room, so there is actually some risk of feeling like you fell really behind at receiver. But I felt like playing ADP there, get the running back, get a player who's like probably going to outscore the receiver, and then we'll probably still get one of the receivers we were eyeing.
Yeah.
And then we'll definitely have guys we're adding later.
Yeah, Shakir comes back, which makes, I think, a ton of sense on this.
Shakir's great.
This room. We'll grab Shakir here. And yeah, this room is we had those running backs staring at us, and only one other running back went off the board after that pick.
Yeah, I guess in this room we could have taken our pick of the receivers and gotten one of the running backs. Yeah. Judkins is still available, huh?
He is.
Wow.
Yeah, this room is a wide receiver room for sure. So here's the team. We got 1 quarterback, Jayden, 3 running backs, JT, Omari, and Hampton, James Conner, 3 wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb, Terry, and Khalil Shakur. No tight ends here. But yeah, this people do not want running backs at this team. Like, you see, Lewenbrew started with Gibbs, has not drafted another running back. Mark Wolf from the 1 hole, 1 running back. Chase Brown, no other running backs. People getting after it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we probably should have taken receiver and then gotten we still would have gotten Connor, or maybe we get Judkins. But I think I do like the start. I probably just I'm getting kind of hyped on Jayden Reed a little bit. I would have preferred him to Shakir, I think.
Me too. I really like Jade. I've like, because you're faced with the same decision almost over and over. If you need a wide receiver, it's like both him and Golden are right there. And I've been like thinking about what frequency I want to be clicking them. And I've been at about like 60-40 in favor of Reed, I think is kind of where I've been in that click, where I'm not trying to get too overconfident in it, but I do really like Reed.
Yeah, I'm trying to take I take Golden when I have the opportunity usually because he tends to go first. But I'm more excited about Reed. But Golden does have like, they could hand him a job in a way that normally I don't love to bet on at receiver, but he might be good enough.
Yeah. And the other thing too, like you never want to, if Golden isn't good, none of this stuff matters. But if he's passable, this organization, they have heard the nonstop criticisms that you have 18 wide receiver 2s and no wide receiver 1s. Like they would love to make Matthew Golden wide receiver 1 happen. They are very much invested in that outcome.
The other thing is that the Packers guys, they even Reed, this applies to Reed, they don't beat man coverage. And Golden, like he kind of is drafted to do that. So I don't know, maybe he won't be good enough to, but that's where you're like, he could be, if he's like Michael Pittman level good, which, I'm not a big Pittman guy, but he's fine.
You're about to be a Pittman guy here in a second.
I'm about to be a Pittman guy. Yeah. Honestly, Pittman's great here.
Yeah.
It's like exactly the type of pick that we're looking for. Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying?
No, just that the bar, I think the bar is like a little lower than usual on how good Golden needs to be given kind of the overall situation. Like LaFleur's a really good coach, Love's a good quarterback. They have a need for like a number 1 guy, but are also not like, they do have other receivers, so it's not like the whole defense is going to be focused on shutting Golden down. So I just think if he's like a pretty solid player, he can have a productive rookie year. Like if he's like a Zay Flowers rookie year level type of guy, he could, he could be quite productive for this price.
Okay, we're on the clock here. Cup, Burden, Trey Harris definitely stand out. You could do Trey Harris paired with Amari Hampton. Cup if you're trying to maybe chase targets.
I like Burden.
Okay, let's do it. I did Burden as my, I think, wide receiver 5 on that last draft as well. I think really the only thing that has kept him from not going kind of where Igbuka is, I think, is this recent soft tissue injury that just has people spooked about a slow start.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all like he is your end of season upside dominator. Like that's why you take Burden, is that he might be the clear-cut best receiver on the Bears by the end of the year. Yep. He was seen as like heading into the draft. It's like this dude might be the number 1 wide receiver in the class. Pre-draft, JJ had him as his wide receiver 1 with, round 1 draft capital, I'm sure, plugged in. And even with his current draft capital, he still looks really good as a prospect. Not like incredible, but I think like we're trying to, with Burden, it's that he's a very boom bust prospect. So you have to take on the risk that he's just like a Jalen Reagor level. It doesn't work. But I think you get some serious upside in this offense, with some of the offensive design, and then the potential for him to just be a lot better than Rome Odunze, and a lot better than at least what we saw from last year from DJ Moore. DJ Moore might be sulking on the sidelines while Burden's ripping off big plays, So
and it's like, one of the things too, over the years, and I'm sure talk about it a little bit with Shawn too, of like when there's ambiguity and playing things through the cheaper pieces in the room too. Like this is almost like the Bears setup lines up almost perfectly for that, because not only are the cheapest pieces like Luther Burden, Loveland, but those happen to be the rookies with really nice draft capital that the new coaching regime put their stamp on. And those are the guys that you can play the offense through cheaply. Like I like that setup, from that perspective.
Yeah. But at this price, like, are you caring so much about what his like week 3 stat line is? Like, that's not why you're doing it.
Yeah. This is an interesting spot here. I feel like we push quarterback at least maybe one pick.
Yeah.
You
I
could
don't take
do
a lot of
Love-
Tyler Warren, but that's kind of fun.
Tyler Warren is fun on the Pittman team, gives us a late third quarterback out as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been trying to get a little bit more Warren, and when you're going to do a 3 tight end room, like getting that one guy with legit upside, I think is nice. How do you want to play this at quarterback? Because you have Dak, obviously, in that same Week 17 game. We have kind of now the Daniel Jones stuff late if we want. But other than that, we don't have any other, stacks already lined up on the roster.
I think we should take quarterback 2 here if Dak's here, or if May just went. So Dak or May were the 2 guys.
There you go.
Yeah.
Dak comes back here to 124.
Dak's great here.
Yeah. So, but aren't you worried about having 2 quarterbacks for the same Week 17 game?
I'm not.
Yeah, me either. This is like an interesting question then and I think we kind of talked about this last week, but say on a Jayden Dak team, no one would fault you for being done at quarterback. Like you're good.
Oh yeah.
But if you get a Daniel Jones or even like a Richardson late, is that a third quarterback you'd explore on a JT and Warren team?
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that we're seeing with the sim driven recommendations is that 3 quarterbacks pretty much, not always, but it's more on the menu than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
And something like this, we would in the past be like, oh, you're like done, but you don't have to be done. If especially you have other stacks and you get a good price, then I think it's kind of like we get to the end and we're like, oh, we have a luxury pick here, but we rarely include quarterback in that luxury pick discussion, and it just should be included. Is really what it is.
For sure. All right, here's the team so far: 2-3-5-1. Jaden Daniels, Dak Prescott at quarterback, JT Omari and Hampton, James Conner at running back, CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin, Khalil Shakur, Michael Pittman, Luther Burden at wide receiver, Tyler Warren at tight end. I want to circle back to, I think most people have been like, uh-oh, here comes the wide receiver avalanche. Like you're getting thin there. Do you think having a guy like Michael Pittman at 93, having like the Burden, Trey Harris types in the 100s, make that avalanche dynamic that we were maybe subjected to, say, 2 years ago, less of an issue this year?
I do, and I think like we know how where the different pockets of value are, and if it feels like Tyler made a comment earlier, like wide receivers like super flat for like several rounds here, kind of starting in the 4th, and okay, if we know that, then maybe instead of like making sure that no matter what, we don't get shut out at wide receiver, we pivot and attack value where it is available, where it's not as flat, and then we'll come back and get wide receiver. So it's not about being thin at receiver. I mean, this team is pretty good at receiver. We have CD, Terry, and then 3 more guys that are like, very solid picks. So yeah, it's about it's just about eking out as much value as we can, And then Ferguson here is a smash.
Ferguson falls back, which is just perfect. You get that double stack with Dak. We need that second tight end, get him right at ADP, and now we have the Dak double stack as well. So that's really nice.
Yeah, this team is really fun, man.
It is. Very, very strong team here. And you're just good at every position. And now we can kind of pick off value a little bit here. The chat's been drumming up for likes here. I just checked. Yeah, 130. We got 669 nice people watching. 137 likes. If you guys are watching, hit that like. We are drafting here with the leg up ranks and the sidekick. You guys can check that out at legendaryupside.com. And Pat and I are trying not to drop the baby here on a fun start. So Pat at 13-4 here. Not really, I don't think, in the quarterback or tight end market. So we're looking at running backs, wide receivers.
I think the running back 4 here's it's a good time to grab one of those guys. Rachaad White, kind of a contingent play. Roschon, we do like, and we have a bear. We got Burden, so already betting on that offense. Those would be the 2 guys I'd be kind of eyeing here.
Yeah. We can do Rachaad White. Let's grab White here at pick 148. He slides 5 picks past ADP. I think I've kind of rethought how I sometimes I do care about, like the type of profile and the textures of the running backs on a late or on a team where you start with 3 really good running backs like we have here. And maybe in the past I would be like, oh, Rachaad White's like the safe high floor play. But I do think of him, if you start to think about Rachaad White less like a passing back and more like, well, what if he has the Tyler Algier type of contingent value if Bucky goes down? Then it starts to get really exciting in that offense.
And Tyler Algier went off the board before him. So that's where, like, it's Trey Benson, Isaac Guerrero, Tyler Algier are coming off the board right before him. Guys we really don't expect that much standalone value from. Maybe get a little. But it's like, oh, okay, I might get more from Rachaad White. And then he really does have, we've seen it. It's not theoretical. He's got like a 3-down role in him if Bucky's not around. He's not that good, but he's not horrible. And he's big enough to get some goal line work. And he catches passes. So, yeah, I mean, he's not like when I looked at, the player pool before really digging in and drafting people post-draft, you're not like, oh, Rachaad White, I'm going to have a bag. But no. He's well priced. He's really well priced for what you get. I think he fits the room really well. Like, we're not like dependent on him, but if he slots in the lineup a couple times early in the season with like Hampton still kind of working into a bigger role, that's very helpful. And then he gives you a good amount of upside, through the contingent value. So I love in every year in fantasy, there's always guys where I'm like, did not think I was going to be a bull on this guy, but here I am. Based on the price, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting, and maybe someone has looked at this, I think this would be a really interesting thing to look at, and I'm thinking about this like anecdotally from how things went last year, but there was this really interesting trend where a lot of the up-tempo negative game script games for the Bucs last year fell in the early to middle part of the year. They played like the Ravens, the Chiefs, they were playing from behind. And then the schedule got a little softer and Bucky took over and they had more positive game scripts. And obviously no one is disputing the Bucky breakout, but I am a little curious of like, what does it look like in 2025 when the Bucs are down 2 touchdowns? What is that? Is it still like, hey, Bucky's our lead back and he's out there? Or is it like, hey, we're just back to the up-tempo Rachaad White show? And I almost think the sample size last year might mask how that actually plays out.
Totally. Yeah. You also do have a new OC. And the Bucky emergence was late. So there's Bucky's so much better than Rachaad White, so it's not a bear case on him from a talent perspective, but there is sometimes pain.
Yes. We're on the clock, Pat. There are some interesting tight end selections.
Pat Bryant's pretty fun.
I still love looking Pat Bryant.
Let's do Pat Bryant.
Especially in this room too, where, we got boxed out of kind of some of the rookies outside of Luther Burden, getting Bryant here. We're taking him 8 picks ahead of ADP, but I think both you and I agree he's worth more than that. And he on ship chasing, when we did our risers exercise, I thought like at the very minimum, he's moving up into the Jalen Knoll range, if not higher by the time
I agree.
BBM closes.
I totally agree.
So we grabbed Pat Bryant there as our 6th wide receiver. We got Tyler Super chat here, $6.90. Who is the quintessential legendary 69 player in 2025 in honor of, I didn't even realize today's June 9th,
wow.
9 day. Yes. Who is the most sex bit player in the player pool these days, Pat? There is still the Michael Penis jokes continue to
it's Michael Penix. Yeah.
There's a lot of
put Penix in. Levitan's tweet from last year is still excellent. We got horny Penix, right? Penix gets horny is I think it's got to be Penix.
Davis, how much do you want to bet Jack Besh versus Pat Bryant fantasy points this year? I'll make that bet with you, and I won't even ask for odds, with one being way more expensive.
You got to do Mims too. That's the other one.
Yeah. Okay, we're about to pick now, and I love how this now swung back to us, so we can stack up Ertz, or we could do Brenton Strange as like the Uber bring back on our Colts stuff.
Let's do Ertz.
Yeah. Just stay correlated there.
Stay correlated.
All right, beautiful. Yeah, so we knew we were going to probably be on a 3 tight end build when we punted that first one until 117. But then, man, this is a dream tight end room for a punt. You get the upside rookie option, and then the 2 correlated pieces with your quarterback.
I just really like this team, top to bottom.
Yeah,
it's a very fun team.
2-4-6-3, Jayden Daniels, Dak Prescott at quarterback, 4 running backs, JT, Amari, and Hampton, James Conner, Rachaad White. Up to 6 wide receivers here: CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin, Khalil Shakur, Michael Pittman, and then Luther Burden, Pat Bryant. Tight end Tyler Warren, Jake Ferguson, Zach Ertz. This is like, you know how people when they go out drinking like for a week and they're like, you need to build up a base. Go eat a couple burgers. We build up a base here with Khalil Shakur, Michael Pittman, and then we start ripping shots with Luther Burden and Pat Bryant.
That's right. That's right. And I think part of the base was Connor. Right?
Yes.
Connor allows you, the thing about Connor, it's like it feels like, oh man, I don't need this running back. Like I'm gonna fall behind at receiver. And you are risking the room really punishing you at receiver, but you don't have to take your running back 4 for a long time if you take Connor as running back 3. Like you buy flexibility at running back in a spot where people are going to start pivoting and get going after the DeAndre Swifts and the Tony Pollards and Aaron Joneses and all those guys. And we sat that range out actually at running back, which is a fine place to live. Like I do like taking those running backs in that range, but if you don't have to, that allows us to grab Warren and Prescott. And so it's not like you don't get anything flexibility wise from taking that 3rd running back. You actually do.
Yep. Oh, one other note on the likes. This is fine is promising to gift 5 memberships if we can reach 400 likes. With that, we have a ways to go. I'm seeing it at 178 right now, but with nearly 700 people watching, all we need is a little more than half of you to hit that like button. And this is fine is going to bless the chat with 5 memberships, which will give you clearance into entering the giveaway on Wednesday to potentially draft with me on stream. All right, Pat, we are about to be back on the clock here. I think we got some flexibility as far as what we want to do. We're still likely looking at running backs or wide receivers here. Running backs have kind of dried up at this point. I do want to float one name to you, and I'm curious.
Okay.
It'll be a little ahead of ADP. We'll see what Charlie does here. We were talking about Miles Sanders on the last stream. This isn't obviously a Dallas stack. And I was saying he's kind of like the one guy that I've been kind of gravitating to late here.
Sure.
But we don't have to do that. I'm just throwing that out there.
No, let's do it. I mean, we're on stream. If we weren't on stream, I'd say let's try to push him, but that's not going to work.
And at this point too, I'm just like, there's not like a huge ADP faller here that's particularly interesting.
No, and I mean these guys, we're at the level where we're talking about a bunch of $1 guys, really. So yeah, I do draft Sanders. It's not something that makes me happy, but I do it.
Yes.
And on a Dak team and on a Jayden team, and as a guy who really kind of fits pretty nicely as a running back 5. Yeah.
And the other guy who obviously would have made sense for us to continue correlating at running back on this team was Eckler, but he goes 1 pick before we take Pat Bryant, and Pat Bryant probably made more sense for this team anyways.
Yep. A.D. Mitchell was the guy I was kind of eyeing up as well.
Yeah.
With this Colts thing we're doing.
Let's do it. I in the first draft, I did a back stack with Dimes, Alec Pierce, and A.D. Mitchell. Because I'm generally taking Mitchell, and I'm like, I need to take a little bit of Alec Pierce sprinkled in here as well.
Yep.
So we have one more pick now, and we're in pretty good shape positionally. 2, 5, 7, 3. Daniels, Dak. Got our 5 running backs: JT, Omari, and Hampton, James Conner, Rachaad White, Miles Sanders. Got our 7 wide receivers: CeeDee, Terry McLaurin, Khalil Shakur, Michael Pittman, Luther Burden, Pat Bryant, A.D. Mitchell. 3 tight ends: Warren, Jake Ferguson, Zach Ertz. And I want to say Terry had a little lamb, also our mnemonic device to help us remember this game. Pull off both of those guys right here as well.
Love it. And this is the spot where if we did want to close with the Colts quarterback, I think we've earned it, right? Like this team's really strong at every position. There's no like glaring holes that we're trying to fix. Like we could tack on a 6th running back. I don't think we have to. Could add another receiver. We really don't have to. We don't have to get to 8 here. So that's where, if we did want to go with one of those guys, I think it might be more helpful than kind of a pure dart throw at the other positions.
Yep. Agreed here. And looking back on some of the decision points, like I think we, sometimes these break in your favor, sometimes they don't. I think going Lamb over Bijan ended up being a really nice call based on how this room fell. And then also I think going JT over Bucky ended up being nice. We ended up kind of having these Colts pieces we liked. And then on top of that, we ended up having the Rachaad White piece that we liked. So like, again, that's not like a skill thing. It's just like a vibes-based lean that breaks your way.
No, it just fell really nicely. Like we didn't, sometimes they fall nicely, there's a couple 2v2s I'm really happy, like, or 1v1s like that we made that I feel really good about. But yeah, then things kind of fell our way as well.
Are you guys gonna have more stuff on like things you guys learned from the sim project?
Yeah. So I'm working on an article, like an announcement article of when we get everything launched, that's going to have some of that in there. So yeah, the answer is yes.
Okay, we're on the clock. I'm putting Daniel Jones in the queue just because I think that makes a ton of sense, but I also wanted to maybe just look at wide receiver 2. Imanor, Tesla, Sevion Williams, if you want to do like a rookie shot. What do you think?
I think Daniel Jones is probably the right call.
Yeah.
It's just way more likely to add points than the other options here.
Agreed. And like if Warren's smashing, if JT's smashing, obviously, right. If Pittman, like we are so in fact, I completely forgot we had Pittman and 82. Like, okay, we need Danny Dimes to crush.
Like we have bet hard on the Colts in a way that like Daniel Jones really, I think Richardson can certainly score points, but we're like kind of betting on a certain type of Colts season that I think Jones makes a lot more sense for.
Yes. Yeah, some people suggest, so again, like I think people, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit, people are like, well, why do you need a third quarterback on a Jayden Daniels, Dak Prescott? You don't need a third quarterback. The point is you have the flexibility to put that, to make the best possible pick almost regardless of positional needs. And you're way more likely to land on a landmine at another position this deep in the draft than you are to just make the bet that already is part of the story you've already told with this lineup.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. You're already betting on Daniel Jones. And so you can just like take Daniel Jones and then benefit from the points that he's likely to provide. And he is likely to like hit the lineup a few times. And the thing with Jones is like, he's had some huge spike weeks, because he can run. So it's not like he's just some boring, you will see the Sims will recommend like Tyler Shuck and stuff. And that's a little harder for me to get on board with. But like here, I'm like, this guy actually has a legit weekly ceiling. And we already bet on like 4 of his weapons. So yeah, I think like Brashard Smith is so much more fun. I want to dream on Brashard Smith taking that job. But also he's like literally a 7th round rookie who had like some work ethic concerns like that. What could be more of a zero potential than that? And Jones has obviously got bench risks of his own, but it looks like he's going to start the season at this point. So,
And to me, I think people they get tripped up on the positional thing. To me, the question is you mentioned some of the running backs there. I think for me, it would have been maybe an 8th wide receiver. Like if I had to truly look positionally and be like, where could we use a little bit more help? But the best options here, we basically have no correlated angles with Imanor, Tesla, Sevion Williams. You're in true dart throw, 0 risk territory with these guys back here. So I need a suggestion. If you're saying what does Danny Dimes do for this team, you need to tell me who does something for this team, because I don't know who else does anything.
We took him 2 rounds after Miles Sanders. We pushed it, man.
I think I'm just indulging a couple of the haters on this team, but
Yeah.
it seems like the chat likes this one. Let me recap.
Davis says Brashard Smith, which is where my head was. If you want an upside, I think it is Smith because that backfield's available for the taking, but I just don't know if he can actually take it. I want to believe.
I think the way the Jones pick doesn't make sense. Like the scenarios where this team is still good and Jones doesn't make sense is basically Richardson plays the whole season and is awesome. Like that's the scenario where you're like, I wish I had that pick back.
Totally. Which could happen, I guess. But the shoulder thing, there was like, kind of feels like they want Daniel Jones to win this job, huh? And then it comes out he re-aggravated the shoulder, doesn't need surgery. Maybe this will blow over and look like kind of something silly, but I don't know. Feels like the winds are kind of blowing in the Jones direction. Plus, Richardson is just so inconsistent, so inaccurate. It was hard to see him holding the job the whole season anyway. Brett said that Richardson would add something to the team and Jones doesn't. I think on this team, I really disagree. Like because we have JT, Pittman, Warren, and A.D. Mitchell. Like we are betting on Colts skill player. Like it's not like Richardson sucking all the points up into like his legs is actually like kind of terrible for this team. We need the Colts to score points through someone's arm. So I think Jones actually makes a sense.
I love this guy. Joey was one of the guys I saw wondering about the Jones. He goes, no, Jones on this team is great. And you guys did it right. I'm just annoyed at the 3 quarterbacks getting pumped so crazy. I know it makes sense, just tilting.
I respect that.
I respect
really
that
do.
so much. Normally the chat does not want to back down from its takes, and Joey at least just calling it straight there. Okay, let me recap this full team here for the audio listeners, and we'll get your guys' thoughts. So 3-5-7-3, Jayden Daniels, Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones at quarterback, 5 running backs, JT, Omarion Hampton slides to us in the early 5th, James Conner, Rachaad White, and Miles Sanders. Wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin, a.k.a. Terry Had a Little Lamb, Khalil Shakur, Michael Pittman, Luther Burden, Pat Bryant, A.D. Mitchell, tight end Tyler Warren, Jake Ferguson, Zach Ertz. So mega stacks on Dallas and Washington, huge stack on Indianapolis. Obviously, Dallas, Washington, week 17. Didn't get anything with Jacksonville opposite Indiana, but a really good mixture, too, of like rookies in here. Burden, Bryant, Warren, Omarion with some like stable vets. I think just like a really, really solid team.
Very, very fun team. The one pick I was like not really sure what to do was when you floated Miles Sanders, which I think was an awesome addition because it's, we get the correlated bet, Dallas backfield's wide open. Playing it through the cheapest piece is kind of my preferred way to play Dallas right now, just because I think all these guys are not very good. Like blue is obviously the highest upside way to play it, but you have to pay for that, at least a little bit. And like I think he's a worse bet than Dowdle was last year. And it's kind of a similar price now. So you get Sanders basically for free as like the what if he's the Javonte, as washed as Sanders is, I think he might be less washed than Javonte.
I know.
Yeah.
That
one was a good one.
That's where I'm at, I think, with the Dallas backfield, where I still think Jaden Blue is that mystery box, upside. Could he be Kamani Vidal? Absolutely. Could he be a surprise league winner? Absolutely. The risk, like the spread right now, I think between Javonte and Miles Sanders ADP is the one that doesn't make sense to me. And makes me so spooked about Javonte because it's like, either Jaden Blue is going to be a thing or he's not, but like Javonte could legit just be in a battle with Miles Sanders for that role.
Yeah, exactly. And like they're talking up Javonte and Miles Sanders as their starters right now, which again isn't to say that Blue isn't the right answer. It does make me wonder if we get cheaper Blue at some point, but Blue could easily be the correct way to play this. Davis tried to get me to capitulate on Jameson Williams on ship chasing, which I didn't do, but I
and now you're going to hell.
And now I'm going to hell. He was going to absolve me, and I refused, and now I'm going to hell. But Blue is someone I'm like coming around on like slightly, but the price keeps going up a bit. So we're behind ADP on him, but I would love to get some Blue if he falls. I don't want to just like hard fade blue, but he profiles as more of kind of a Nyheim Hines type of bet, which could pay off if they pass enough. But who's the early down guy? Who's like the reliable short yardage guy? It's probably Sanders or Javonte, and the price difference between those two, I just, it's kind of overconfidence by the market, I think.
This was this was the coach speak. And again, I take a lot of this stuff with a pretty big grain of salt this early in, but this is what Shadi said about Miles Sanders the other day. This is from the Coach Speak Index Discord. Everybody should be in there. He does an awesome job. He says, I don't know why anyone would be surprised with Miles Sanders' ability. You talk about a guy that's a home run threat, a guy that's got incredible ability to hurt you running and catching the ball out of the backfield. He's the right type of guy. He fits into what we're trying to build as a culture from a work ethic standpoint. That's the kind of coach speak that seems like it's going to be hard for a rookie to just easily dispatch, a guy that the coaching staff trusts that much in those kind of situations.
For sure.
So,
and we had the comment here saying thought Sanders was significantly more washed than Javonte, couldn't do anything behind an elite run blocking line. I mean, that's all fair. Like Sanders is, again, like I didn't want to be, he's kind of in that Rachaad White thing. Yeah, like why am I bullish on Sanders? Why have you done this to me?
I'm trying to get like the Miles Sanders trade going here.
Yeah. So I agree. I do think he's got to watch, but he's so much less expensive than the other kind of washed play. So I'll give you that he's even slightly more washed than Javonte, but still, like the price is the gap between the prices is so big.
And I'll just say, like, separating the Miles Sanders aspect of this, I do like one of my favorite ways to correlate in best ball is the backup running back with the quarterback. Because generally, if you have the quarterback, you've built out a stack on the passing game and you've had to forego the elite running back option in that offense, just like typically in like the way that you can basically build this super team where if you play into the contingent upside and then you're able to have the entire offense for the fantasy playoffs and your team is jacked up and you didn't have to spend that early capital to get it, I think is just a really potent way to build teams.
Yeah, I love that. In this case, it's ambiguous. So it's not even just contingent. Like we could end up with a guy who's, who takes a job from Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams is not someone who's definitely going to have a job this year, Yeah.
Well, and this is kind of a funny comment because I think this is meant to be a dig. Miles Sanders is Gus Edwards for last year, but we were drafting Gus Edwards at like pick 110, not pick 189. Yeah, I think you'd be very happy to have last year's Gus Edwards at pick 189.
Well, also, if we want to do that analogy based purely on the prices, he's the Dobbins.
Yeah.
Right?
By price.
Javonte's the Gus. By price, by the way the market had it. Right? So, I mean, I guess my point there is like, I think overconfidence is kind of the issue here. That's why like I'm tripping on the big gap between these two players. Like I don't think that the skill level really should dictate that big of a gap. And we just did this. We were like, oh, Gus, not Dobbins. Dobbins is done. Dobbins is washed. He's the injuries are caught up with him. He's not the same guy. And then Dobbins, the later of the two early down guys, and not the dart throw rookie with no draft capital really. The answer was Dobbins. The answer was the cheapest of the three.
Well, the other thing too is like when we're drafting teams, we tend to want to gravitate to the most talented player, right? Because we want to trust that talent's going to win out, that the coaches will see that talent, and no matter how stubborn they are, that they won't be able to deny the most talented player touches. I think two things interesting with the Cowboys backfield. I think it's really hard to say right now who's the most talented running back. Like I do not think anyone can unequivocally say across these three options who's the most talented. And then the second point, if there's been one team who has been so steadfast in their commitment to stubbornness at the running back position right now, it is the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they gave
Can we get that as like the Dallas Cowboys slogan? Steadfastly committed to stubbornness.
I mean, like the one team that I would not want to bank on just like turning the keys over to the most talented player. I mean, they had to be dragged kicking and screaming to play Rico Dowdle over Zeke last year. Like they did not want to do it.
They really did it.
So
they
whatever.
Really did not.
I don't know how this turned into a Miles Sanders hype train. It's the conversation to me more is twofold. It's about correlation and it's about humility in ambiguous backfields. That's kind of to me what the bigger point is.
And I throw a third point, which is that if you give me some bullish news on Rashard Smith, I will take him in the 14th or 15th. Like, if you give me some bullish news on Marshawn Lloyd, I will absolutely hammer him.
I'm on my knees begging for some
Please.
bullish news about Marshawn Lloyd. Anything.
Like,
Anything.
if you give me Devin Neal hype, I will slam Devin Neal. If you give me Kendry Miller hype, I'll slam Kendry Miller. Like, there's so many backfields where we don't really know. And so, yeah, I'm taking some more stabs on the ones where it's like, the coaches are talking this guy up in the same breath as the guy that everyone thinks is the starter. So I'll take him in the 16th to 18th. Like, that seems okay. But like, please give me more exciting bets soon, and I'll go all in.
I know. And that's the thing too, right? Like, it's a real exercise in patience right now, because we're all drafting and none of us want to click boring players that we have a hard time envisioning league winning breakout potential from at the end of the draft. But the flip side of that is you're often taking a lot of zero risk. And so I see people pushing back on coach speak stuff, like in the chat too right now. And it's like, it's the closest thing we have to a signal that there is something more here. Is it the end all be all? No. Do coaches often lie? Yes. But what else do we have to separate the list of running backs Pat just named from the bunch? Other than taking, 2% of every one of those ones? Like, we want to make a better bet. And I think the coach speak is going to point us in a better direction more times than not.
Yeah. We don't want to take a bunch of zeros hunting for the hit rates on. There's probably a guy in the 18th round that is like clearly the answer. And you should never take Miles Sanders, because you should just have 100% that guy. I just don't know who that guy is.
Right.
I'm hoping to learn. Like, as soon as I think I might know who that is, like, I'm going to be aggressive. And, in part because none of us know who it is. And so he's not getting drafted probably in a bunch of drafts, or he's getting drafted in tandem with a bunch of other zeros, it's like the types of people maybe taking that dart throw running back now are also taking other dart throw running backs who are going to be nothing. So yeah, like, I would love for the information needed to hammer the actual upside plays that are going to be better NFL players than Miles Sanders this year, for sure.
Well, I did not envision when I set out on this best ball breakfast to have the great Dallas Cowboys debate. It's like, it's one of those things that happens where you start having a debate about a player that you're just like slightly interested in, but the way like debating mechanics and like outlining your case, it makes it seem like I want to take Miles Sanders in every draft. I'm like, I have like 3.5% of this guy right now. Like, let's relax. I should actually go see. I should see my Cowboys running back exposure in here. Let's see, Dallas. Okay, see, I'm way more on blue, 15.5%. Javonte 4.8%. Miles Sanders 2.4%. And I just made an impassioned case for Miles Sanders. If anything, I need to start drafting him more and listening to my own bull takes.
How much like Davis? Do you think you have more Jayden Blue than Davis, who's giving me nonstop shit for not taking Jayden Blue?
Jayden Blue, Davis, 15.5%. I bet I do. I don't think Davis is, 15.5 is greater than 8.3. So I just have to assume that I do.
I love it.
All right, Pat, let people know what else to keep an eye out for over at Leg Up here.
Yeah, have Matt Irby's going to have an article out on the site this week. I'm working on a tight end article as well. We've got, as I mentioned, earlier we have updates coming for the sidekick. We're going to do a beta for that. Will be the way that people are able to get their hands on that first. So we'll have more news on the timing of that soon. And yeah, we'll be cooking over here with the rankings for all your best ball needs.
Also, be sure to tune in to ADP Chasing tomorrow with Pat, Davis, Jacob, and Shope. I believe it might even be the Marshawn Lloyd episode. I think the theme is going to be dead or alive players, whether they still have any juice left in the
Shope got
tank.
mad because I said wanted dead or alive Marshawn Lloyd, but I want the point is that I want Marshawn Lloyd. I just don't know if he's dead or alive.
Yes.
So it's not anti Marshawn Lloyd. It's that he's low floor.
Yes.
And then we were kicking around a ship chasing idea that I proposed. As I was, this kind of came out of talking through stuff in the rankings chat, which got for leg up, which got like kind of completely off the rails. But I was pitching. Should I tease the pitch?
Yes, tease the pitch, because I still don't even. I understand it, but I don't actually understand how it would work.
I want us to draft the NFL head coaches for fantasy teams. So I think the idea if we get a guest on, that's 8 coaches per person. So we draft the coaches, then you declare a position, which position you think this guy's going to play for your team, and then you slot them into your fantasy roster.
And how are the points? Like, what is the metric that we're basing these picks off of? Their wins?
Oh, just vibes. Just totally vibes.
Complete vibes.
Complete
Okay.
vibes. But the point is that they are playing the positions.
Okay.
So like they're not coaching. This is a football team of football players.
And so then are we caring about like body type? Like we're putting Andy Reid on the offensive line? Okay.
I certainly am. No, but I think, I don't know if we have enough coaches to build out an offensive line, which makes, Andy Reid, but I was thinking Andy Reid could be a pretty good goal line back. He could be a running back.
I already want to argue and just say we can't waste Andy Reid at any position other than offensive line.
Well, then we have to figure out what the rosters are, because yeah.
All right.
But Dan Campbell at tight end, that's pretty appealing. Yeah. There's some like really good picks, and then there's some like guys you're looking to hide, like slot receiver Mike McDaniel probably.
There's a lot of guys and honestly, Dan Campbell, he might have to be right there next to Andy Reid on the offensive line. Like I think we might just need his size with the interior run blocking and pass protection. He can do we'll make him tackle eligible every play. How about that?
Okay.
All right. I'm going to let Pat go, and I'm super excited to dust off the intro music here for our next guest. Haven't had a chance to play this year, so without further ado, let's get ready for the Best Ball Banana Stand. We'll see you next time, Pat. All right. RotoViz's Shawn Siegele back on the Best Ball Banana Stand. Shawn, how you doing?
Good. It was fun watching you and Pat there. You guys smiling, laughing, just having so much fun together after all these years, and so fresh. It's so cool. And then the Best Ball Banana Stand image comes up there. I've got my mouth half open, like I'm just stunned at what we have pulled off. And yeah, I'm excited.
Yep.
I'm happy. I've been missing this.
Yeah, for people who are somehow new around the channel, last year, Shawn drafted these teams with me every Monday morning regularly. Shawn, though a very busy man, has a lot going on these days, so not able to do it weekly, but super excited to have him back on with me. Leone is out this week, and I couldn't think of anyone other than my original Banana Stand partner to come and draft with me. And Shawn, I know you've been writing up some massive pieces. I got through your big piece on the Gorilla contest for FFPC over there. And you do have underdog ranks, though. Have you been able to be drafting any underdog teams of late?
I have drafted a few. I have to admit that I've been mostly drafting in the Superflex puppy.
Yeah.
Superflex drafts are a lot of fun. I do like those additional 2 rounds. I like to make a lot of really bad picks, and it makes more sense. So you can feel more comfortable doing it if it's in rounds 19 and 20.
It's funny you say that, because during my first solo draft, I was mentioning to people that when I have time off stream to draft, I've been doing the Superflex puppies as well. I don't want to bog us down too much with Superflex stuff, but what has been kind of your preferred way to attack those? Are you getting your 3 quarterbacks through 4 or 5 rounds, or do you like pushing quarterbacks?
I think you can do it either way. One of the things that is so much fun about I mean, probably you could just go back and say most of the years, but certainly this year, you can play quarterbacks a lot of different ways. In the regular best ball, you can certainly do it a lot of different ways. In Superflex, our roster construction explorer has helped people just really dominate the FFPC version of the contest, but the contests are quite different because of the scoring of other players, right? And so in the underdog one, I'm trying to not be quite as crazy, in part because you could still build incredible teams, or at least creative, fun teams after you get those QBs early.
Yeah, and that is the fun thing about it. There's so many different ways you can play it. And obviously your draft slot in round one. I mean, the difference between, getting a Jayden Daniels in round one versus even like a Baker Mayfield in round one, and that's just the span of like 4 to 5 picks. Like that dynamic is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I don't have much Baker. I do understand they're going to throw a lot. They're loaded up with weapons. They've got a favorable schedule for it. It still seems like one of those situations where it's chasing last year's points in a way that, I think the Baker Mayfield is good, right? And he was probably underrated. He was playing through injuries early in his career. He's made some jumps. And again, weapons matter, play style matters, but you probably want to find this year's version of Baker Mayfield as opposed to try and draft last year's points.
Any kind of thoughts on the overall macro for just kind of the general ADP landscape this year? I know it was a couple years ago, we kind of had the year of attacking the dead zone RB. You had all of these really favorable prices, through rounds, 3 through 8. Last year we had obviously the reckoning with all of the running backs smashing, specifically all those free agent ones who changed teams. Anything that you're kind of noticing overall in the ADP landscape, maybe a thematic through line for 2025?
Well, Colin and I had a chance to do a really fun Spike Week show with Eric. And one of the things that he was mentioning is just his rankings at the top there. And I was thinking about that. I was like, I don't know why I'm messing around with these rankings at the top of round one. Let's go with the guys I think should be there and the guys that make sense in this format. So specifically for this, I moved the wide receivers up just in the last several days. I think that you do need to get that foundation piece like that at receiver if you can. We talked a lot about, trying to get to that 5, that 6 receiver inside or before you fall off the cliff. I think that dynamic is still very much the case. ADP has not pivoted back as much in favor of running backs as I might have guessed. Now we know that part of that is because the guys who were scoring really slowed down the stretch and didn't do maybe that much for people during the tournament, right? And so, or during the race. And so that part is going to, just dampen the enthusiasm, or at least temper it in terms of how they're going to approach that. But when we're looking at these drafts, one of the things that you see is even when you get that receiver early, you have so many opportunities. And when we talked on the After Dark show, we were thinking about this fact that there are so many good rookie running backs that probably they're going to end up being undervalued. One of the things I'm interested in sort of as the draft develops today and hearing from you, you were saying pre-NFL draft, that you prefer sort of to take the unknown as opposed to some of these second-year guys where, we could get that Tank Bigsby, say, minor jump. We could get that Zach Charbonnet, maybe a jump in an interesting way, but let's take sort of the unknown instead. For me, that seems to be even more the case when we look at it post-draft and see that guys like Hampton, if Genty's not there, his ADP probably completely different. If those two guys aren't there, just as you go all the way down, you continue to look at, well, if it weren't for the weirdness of having so many guys in front of them, where would they be?
Yeah, no, for sure. And even a guy like last week I drafted with Gretch and he was talking about conversations you guys had about Dylan Sampson and even the kind of ambiguity in that room that's maybe not fully reflected in the market. So yeah, I think that dynamic you're describing is this pressure wall of all of these exciting options that's now maybe the ones at the top are properly valued, but everybody else is getting pushed down naturally because of other kind of positional constraints or whatever. So yeah, I'm excited to navigate that with you. And I hopped us in a draft, Shawn. We're on the clock at 105. I do have your ranks pulled in here. I know you really like Neighbors by ADP. CeeDee Lamb is here, but I want the quintessential Shawn draft this morning. Who do you think we take?
Yeah, well, I was saying that we should draft a crazy one. I think all three of those guys, certainly getting Lamb here works very well. I mean, Neighbors is so much fun.
Yeah, I'm not clicking CeeDee Lamb over Neighbors when I see the number 2 next to your rank. Let's hear the obviously people are sold on Neighbors. He's a first round pick in every draft, but let's hear the bull case for Neighbors going even higher than his ADP.
Well, one of the things I've been looking at with a lot of these receivers, going back through and even just calibrating to what they are or what they were as prospects. Now we know that once these guys are in the NFL for several years, and so I'm thinking about guys who are even in third, fourth, fifth seasons. Can we get these secondary breakouts where they launch to that, say, 300-point level? With Neighbors, we're just in year 2. We do know that the prospect profile still matters. You think about what he did as a college player with Brian Thomas there. You can look at any of the stats. One of the things is with the ball in his hands, and that was the thing that really separated him from Marvin Harrison. And it's something that when you go back and look, the guys who dominate after they get the ball as well as everything else, I mean, you're looking at names like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, much more dynamic and dominant, even as a college player, I think, than maybe we get the sense of. It's no surprise that he's an absolute superstar. You fast forward to now, you think about what he did from a target perspective last year. You think about the fact that he basically has no competition, right? I mean, that depth chart is weak enough that Wan'Dale Robinson, which we love, it's so funny to bring up our thread, and it's
our email thread.
But I mean, that's not a guy who the team is going to want to draw that many targets again this season. I mean, Malik Neighbors is going to lead the NFL in targets unless he gets injured. Some of those targets with the quality of quarterback play they get may be fairly low, but we already watched what he did in the Drew Lock game. And low value targets, I don't care. I'm just going to score a huge number of points.
Yep. I'm very excited about him as well. We start with Malik Neighbors here. Like I said, we do got the Shawn ranks pulled in. There's been some whispers about these ranks across the industry, some aggressive picks here. So excited to see how this pans out for us today. And we're about to pick here. We are on the clock. So by ADP, you're looking at like Lad, Bucky, T. Looks like you have Lad and Bucky right there as well in your ranks. Do you have a preference with those guys?
I mean, it would be fun to get Bucky. Do you have a preference? Do you need to go?
No, I want the Shawn draft here. So you're making the executive decision here.
Let's go with Bucky. One of the things as we go for this wide receiver oriented build is that I do think that round 2 is your opportunity to get that foundation back. I think Achane is undervalued. Obviously, he doesn't make it to us, but there are ways in which Bucky could do the same thing. Now, he's not going to hit the long runs probably in the same way. It was kind of funny. He did hit a lot of long runs last year, but they didn't finish in the end zone. Some of that is just bad luck. Some of it is that he is susceptible to being caught from behind because he doesn't have the elite straight line speed. As we're drafting these running backs, what you get with Saquon, what you get with Gibbs, what you get with Henry, Achane, Jonathan Taylor is that every touch is a high value touch because these guys can go 60 yards. You're probably not going to get that from Irving. But again, if you do want to bet on that Tampa offense, I think he's a great way to do it in that he just came into the NFL and did everything that he had done in college, where you want to talk about someone where the stats back up the eye test, where this guy can change direction without losing speed, beats the first defender a huge percentage of the time, and then is deep into the secondary, and is a great receiving back, and is on a team that should score a ton of points. Everything there is perfect for getting that foundation runner.
Yeah, I love this too, because Pat and I were debating between him last draft. We ended up going Jonathan Taylor, who went 1 pick ahead of us here. So now we get to start with Malik Neighbors, Bucky Irving, drafting 2 guys who had awesome rookie years, who should be expected to build on that in year 2. And then we're about to pick here in the 3rd round. We are on the clock here. By ADP, you're looking at Terry, Chase Brown, JSN, Devontae Adams. By rank, you got Chase Brown and JSN here. Does one of those stand out to you over the other?
Well, I think it depends on what you think we need to do structurally. Chase Brown is one of these guys who, I mean, he's got the blazing speed. He's going to be in an offense that scores a lot. And so if you want to take a second RB, that works. If we need the receiver, then
this year I've been a little less worried about kind of that dynamic you're describing. I know, when we've done this in previous years, there have been some of those rooms where we were forced to take Tyquan Thornton in the 10th round because the room was absolutely punishing us at wide receiver. I haven't felt that quite as much this year. I mean, Pat and I just did a draft where we only had 3 wide receivers through, 7 rounds, and you come back and you're able to get Michael Pittman, you're able to get Luther Burden, we get Pat Bryant. Like, there's some guys that you can feel pretty good about to build out your room. So I've been less afraid of making that second early running back click, especially if you really like the profile and think, Chase Brown should be a second rounder who's going in the 3rd.
So I've been writing him up. He's one of the articles who will come out in the next, we've got like 7 going. So it depends if I ever finish any of them or I just start 15 more, but that should come out somewhat soon. It discusses the different elements of his profile and why he actually should have been picked much earlier in the reality draft. One of the things that you do run into here with these guys who didn't go early and don't have just that moat that tends to follow you around forever. If you were a first round pick, if you were a high first round pick, but even those guys who picked, in round 2, they're always sort of viewed that way. You get into a cold stretch, the team is like, he's got this elite pedigree, he'll come back out of it. That type of thing doesn't necessarily attach itself to someone like a Chase Brown. He goes through a down stretch and they're like, oh, this guy, he's not that big. He's not hitting these big plays, even though he's fast. So you worry a little bit about that, but then you go back through his profile and look at all the different elements. I mean, he is not that different. And it was interesting. I was kind of cross-checking a variety of different ways of evaluating guys. I mean, Next Gen had him above HAN coming out in that class, right? And so, again, when you're looking at speed and production, Chase Brown is very interesting.
How do you think, because one of the things I hear brought up a lot if people are building cases against Chase Brown is they bring up Taj Brooks, which I know he's a guy you're really interested in as well. So like, how do you hold those two things in your head of like being excited about Chase Brown, but also getting pretty excited about if Taj Brooks got an opportunity?
Well, I think we're probably looking at a slightly lower ceiling than what he demonstrated down the stretch where he was just absolutely unreal. Taj Brooks, that productive back, big back, he's got that elite agility. He's kind of that sort of poor man's muscle hamster. I mean, you're looking at some Doug Martin there. And, that would worry you, right? Because that is a profile that not only is good overall, but could take high value touches. I think it's going to be a great fit. And I think that Brooks is probably one of these guys who, unless Brown gets dinged up, any of these guys get hurt, you've got a good backup. They could really push. But it's probably more of a year 2 thesis for Brooks, even though I am certainly taking him late.
All right, we are about to pick here at 4-8. We have Bucky, Chase Brown, and Neighbors. Looking at ADP, we got James Cook sliding a little bit these days. Jayden, Travis Hunter. By your rank, it looks like Zay is our best wide receiver. We do have a couple of running backs in the mix here as well. What do you think the angle is here?
Well, have we ever come out of it successfully when we took 3 early running backs? Because it is tempting.
Look, Shawn, what's the phrase? Fuck around and find out. Do you want to do it?
Let's take Hampton.
All right, we're going to take Hampton here. Pat and I got him in the early 5th in our draft right before this. He slid, and I don't think any 2 people have ever ran to the podium fast enough to grab him. So this is the thing. We bring on the godfather of zero RB to start with Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, and Amari and Hampton through our first 3 picks. But I will say too, like you both in your ranks and in the ADP, like this is a pretty flat range for wide receivers. I think you can make really strong cases for a lot of the wide receivers going in round 5 and 6 of being on equal footing with some of these round 4 wide receivers. I guess the only thing I would mention is, the one player it seems like you've been higher on than almost anybody up to this point is Trevion Henderson. This probably takes us out of the Trevion Henderson business.
Yeah, it probably does. One of the strange ADPs, or just disappointing, is, how's Jameson Williams going to pay off at these prices? But, I'm not against it. I'd like to have him on every team. And so it's just one of those things where everybody else, please stop drafting him at a price that's unreasonable. I want to draft him at a price that's unreasonable.
We've had some big debates about Jameson Williams on ship chasing. Those guys have had some on ADP chasing as well. Definitely a very polarizing player where both sides there feel like he's either way overpriced or perfectly priced. All right, we are back on the clock. Probably should be looking at wide receiver here. Waddle and Ridley by ADP. In your ranks, you got some other guys. Jordan Addison in the mix there. What do you think?
Well, I just like to go ahead and take Judy in every draft, and so that is sort of my preference for
let's
trying to
do
get
it.
back out of this situation.
Let's take Judy here. And maybe a chance he would have came back to us at pick 68, but no guarantee based on his ADP. Talk about Judy, because I think people are mainly just scared by the quarterback situation. But I know you've always been kind of ahead of market on Judy, and once again this year.
Well, you look at his profile through the years, and one of the things that has been a huge problem for him is that the quarterbacks that he's played with have been apocalyptically bad. And that was even the case for a pretty decent number of attempts down the stretch of last season when they benched Jameis Winston. And, he still scores right now. He was held down a couple times in the past with the guys that he played with in Denver. I just think that the QB play with Cleveland is actually going to be better than what he's gotten. I think that Joe Flacco can do a lot of the things that Winston did for them in the first half of the season. And then one of the things with these rookies, Dylan Gabriel, I think is actually really good. And they seem to think that with the direction that they went with him. But then you also have Sanders. So whenever they bring that rookie in, the player who wins that battle, I think, will be ready and will be exciting, will be interesting. And then, they're going to want to see those guys throw, right? Because if neither of them are good, then they need to immediately go back to the well next season. They've got to find out what they have. And so I think it could be a more dynamic offense than people think. I think the Cleveland Browns are going to score. So from that perspective, it doesn't bother me. You do have that risk that everything is just moving along nicely. And then they're like, we do have to find out about the rookies. And it comes at a time in the season that is problematic for you. I'm leaning into it. We've just taken Neighbors and Judy. We've got the problem with both guys.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing too. And I think honestly, one of the reasons Neighbors isn't going slightly higher, one of the reasons Jerry Judy isn't going around earlier is just, it's not even fear about the quarterback play. It's just people, myself included, we like to draft wide receivers who we know we can stack cleanly later. It's like, oh, you draft CeeDee Lamb, well, Dak Prescott becomes a really solid target for you. That's obviously not in play with these guys. And so I think it's like this natural mental tiebreaker for people of like, let me just take the guy who's quarterback I know and can stack him with and not deal with this mess. Have you drafted any of the Cleveland wide receivers in the Superflex quarterbacks?
Yes. Definitely Flacco, definitely Gabriel.
No Shedeur.
I'm not as high on him, where I think that Gabriel probably is just simply better, but I'm not completely out by any stretch. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins that. I wouldn't be surprised. And if he does at that point, I do think that he'll play well because he will have beaten out other guys who I think are also impressive.
All right, we're on the clock again, Shawn, by ADP, Connor, Debo, David Montgomery. By your rank, we got, Jayden Reed up here, probably still in wide receiver pick territory. Who do you think we should do?
Yeah, one of the reasons for going with Judy is just to clear things out to take Reed here. And even though they're both reaches by ADP, I think it sets us up nicely to make sure we're getting the types of players and weekly upside, seasonal upside that works, where if we push them and then we keep missing on them, especially after who we've started with. And one of the things that was very clear to me as you were talking about that stack element was that it is a little bit more of a problem if you take in those three running backs, because the three running back spots become guys who are also obviously not receivers that you're stacking with your QB.
Right. Although, the nice thing too, obviously we're not doing Burrow, but I have no problem, pairing, quarterbacks. Obviously you kind of said you were down on Baker, but just conceptually the quarterback with the running back isn't something I mind. I do want you to talk about Jayden Reed though. The chat, Pat and I were briefly talking about Reed and Golden just because their ADPs are right next to each other. And that's kind of a decision point a lot of times. Give the 2025 bull case for Jayden Reed.
Well, he was a bit injured last season, and obviously they stopped throwing in part because Jordan Love was injured, and in part because their guys just kept dropping all the passes. Reed and Wicks had these incredible drop rates, and at a certain point, the play caller just gets a little bit gun shy. Reed's numbers, though, still fine. People who score the way he scored in the first two seasons have, very good track records for having that sort of secondary breakout in year three. His talent is such that if it works, it's going to work really well, or it has that potential to work really well. If it doesn't work, then again, I don't think that's as much of a problem when you're drafting best ball teams as maybe when you're doing something else.
True. We got 10 seconds here for this pick. Josh Downs is the highest ranked wide receiver for you by ADP. Diggs, Shakir, Ayuk. Who do you think?
I would go with Downs. I mean, if we're getting more confident that Anthony Richardson is indeed the underdog in that battle, then Downs is just not remotely priced correctly.
We do get him. My nimble fingers there. I saw him at the top of the ranks, and I still was struggling to get that in. I was really sweating an auto timeout, but we do lock up Josh Downs here. And yeah, I do think, you look at the other types of players going in this range. He's sandwiched in between Myers and Shakir. Diggs, obviously coming off the board here as well. It's hard to say why he shouldn't be included in this range more regularly as we kind of reach to pull him up in here. Is that for you? Like, if you knew Anthony Richardson was going to be his quarterback for all 17 weeks, would you have him lower in your ranks?
I would, but I think that even then you have this possibility. So the Colts situation, I'm not as confident in, because you can certainly look at what they've done in the past and say, the winner of that battle could just still be terrible, right? And yet Daniel Jones is a little better than people think. And he would probably, you think about all those targets to Wandale, if those are targets going to Josh Downs, who is a supercharged version of him, then you're starting to look at something that is very exciting. Josh Downs, playing through injury, diving, making these unbelievable catches in the end zone where he's landing on his injured shoulder, plays like that. He has to be a real target hog in that offense either way. If Richardson were to win the battle, then I think it does assume that he takes at least a mild step forward. And at that point, you're talking about a guy in Josh Downs where the talent is such that any type of step forward with Richardson, and I've been out on Richardson from the very beginning, but I think you still have to be open to the idea that someone could improve, right? One of the whole points with him is he didn't have a lot of experience. And so you continue to move through. You had a massive jump in play from Josh Allen after he had been in the NFL for a while. I don't think it's likely that we get that from Richardson. But if he plays well enough to be the starter, I do think he can pull someone like Downs along. It makes it more difficult probably for them to pull other guys in that offense along.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let me recap the team here through 7 rounds. We start with neighbors. We rip off 3 straight running backs: Bucky, Chase Brown, Omari, and Hampton. We come back and get some wide receiver targets here: Judy, Jayden Reed, Josh Downs. And then we're about to be on the clock in the 8th here. So 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers. I've noticed, Shawn, the draft I did, the first draft this morning, I did a late round quarterback and late round tight end build, where I had just running backs and wide receivers through the first 10 rounds. And I've found those builds to work pretty well this year. Let's make this pick, and then we can discuss further about those kind of construction angles here. Igbuka and Higgins are the top by ADP. Looks like you have Higgins and Burden here. Also some running backs. Where do you think we should go?
Yeah, Higgins is a fun pick. We don't have a ton of rookies so far, so we're not as worried about the idea that we won't get any early production. And being able to draft these guys through round 8, so we get the 5 and 8 as opposed to the 6 and 8. One of the reasons that I was comfortable doing Irving, Brown, and Hampton is that, again, by my ranks, that I obviously like Judy, Reed, Downs, and Higgins, and especially those first 3, quite a bit more than where they're priced. So you're going to be able to reach for them, put them all together, then add someone like one of these certainly problematic guys with red flags, but a lot of upside when you're talking about that player group of Higgins, Igbuka, and Burden. You put that guy on the end, and now suddenly, we have players that we can now stack in terms of Reed and Higgins, and we have the depth that we need. We have the upside. Higgins, one of these guys where if that Houston offense takes off, he's a little bit of an arbitrage McMillan, and I say that thinking that McMillan is undervalued.
Yeah, I'm excited to have that. We were talking about McMillan at the end of one of the previous drafts. If we get to that point in the draft, I'd be interested in having that combo. We're about to pick here at 9-5. Like we said, 3 running backs, 5 wide receivers, no tight ends or quarterbacks yet. We'll see what CMG does in front of us. Nothing here, by ADP. Both Baker and Igbuka are here. By your ranks, Burden and Igbuka. We also have Evan Ingram, some running back options. What do you think is the play here at 9-5?
I mean, Burden lets us get that 6th guy. And not that we wouldn't have some interesting picks late, but I think that's probably the way I would go with it.
Sorry, Burden?
Burden, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Sorry here. I was real quick. I'm trying to troubleshoot in my StreamYard hopper. I stopped seeing the chat comments here. I believe they're still coming in on YouTube. Shawn, I might just do a very quick refresh on my screen. The stream will not go down, but I will be back in 1 sec. How about this? I will ask you a question here about these rookies in this range. Obviously, you have Higgins, Burden. I think Trey Harris is the other one going. Igbuka. What makes Higgins kind of separate for you from those other guys with similar draft capital?
I think you get into a situation there where Higgins is in an offense that could jump back to being a passing juggernaut and is not blocked or is not as congested there as it is with the Bears, as it is with the Bucks. He's also someone where you get this combination of traits, right? You've got the big receiver, but one of the interesting things with these 2 guys drafted out of Iowa State is that Higgins is actually the guy who was more dynamic with the ball in his hands, right? Evading tackles, yards after the catch, that type of element. Now, Noel is very exciting because he is just so incredibly athletic that explodes off of the tape, the highlights, what have you. And that was very obvious then when he goes to the combine and he dominates there. And yet when you're talking about someone who could do a lot of Nico Collins-like things, and the Texans will have a lot of flexibility with this offense, you obviously have potential for red zone dominance. You can do a variety of things with him. And because he has the size, the athleticism, the ball in hand, the upside there is just off the charts, right? You're probably not thinking anything along the lines of a Brian Thomas eruption, but the number of points you're looking at, the possibility for him to really separate and be that guy where, we think about dynasty and where these players are next year at this time. People are wondering why he wasn't going 106, 107, 108, or at least more in the discussion for that type of pick. All of it goes back to the idea that CJ Stroud can bounce back and be a little bit more like he was as a rookie. And that part with the reports that you're getting some shoulder soreness, that type of thing. I would like for Neighbors to be completely healthy. I would like for Stroud to be completely healthy as we think about where those guys are. But then you look at Higgins and you move back to Burden. Burden is someone who a year ago would have been probably a reality top 10 pick. He's maybe the most dynamic player in this class with the ball in his hands. We know that those types of players, as they transition to the NFL, and especially coming off of the bad season like he is, that there is more risk that way. And so I think that being a pure bust is much more in the very reasonable range of outcomes for Burden, and certainly him getting injured at this point isn't great. Not that it's going to necessarily matter for the regular season, but you'd like for him to be continuing to develop momentum. The Bears haven't seemed that happy with DJ Moore, which potentially could be one of the reasons they made that pick. Roma Dunze did have red flags in his profile. He was probably overdrafted where he was last year. Now, overdrafted doesn't mean he wouldn't have still been a first-round reality pick justifiably. Any of those guys, second season, you could get a blow-up. But when you think about how Caleb Williams struggled in certain ways, you think about Ben Johnson's genius, the ability for Burden to be the player who really benefits out of all the guys they have in this stacked receiving group. I think that he may be the one to go. I wonder how we're doing on this team. I'm going to go ahead and refresh to make sure.